Ready? Ready? Okay. All right, folks, we're going to get started here. Thank you. This time I'd like to call the meeting to order, or call the hearing to order. Time is 6:30 p.m. This meeting of the Genoa Township Trustees will be recorded. The meeting audio and written minutes will be available on Genoa Township's website at www.genoatownship.com or by contacting Genoa's fiscal office. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes per person, and there is no yielding of time. At this time, I will read the legal notice. Genoa Baptist Church requesting approval of a final development plan amendment to construct an approximately 65,520 square foot school building on approximately 87.8 acres at 7562 Lewis Center Road, Westerville, Ohio 43082. A church currently zoned Planned Community Facilities, PCF, zoning case number 2021-01. So at this time, I would ask that anyone who wishes to speak to this matter stand up and be sworn in. Just raise your right hand. You can do it from where you're at. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the true self you got?
I do.
Thank you very much. Consider yourself sworn in. The legal notice for this meeting was printed and published on April 20th, 2021 in the Delaware Gazette and posted on the Genoa Township Hall on April 16th, 2021. An attempt to send notice of this meeting to adjacent property owners was also made. The following were marked as Exhibits A through L. Exhibit A, legal notice. Exhibit B, affidavit of advertisement. Exhibit C, sign-in sheet. Exhibit D, application and plans, originally received February 8, 2021. Exhibit E, revised application and plans received April 22nd, 2021. Exhibit F, Fire Marshal's letter dated February 4, February 17th, and April 7th, 2021. Exhibit G, trustee acknowledgement of the Zoning Commission's recommendation made on April 15th, 2021. Exhibit H, staff technical review dated April 28, 2021 for the May 3rd, 2021 meeting. Exhibit I, staff memo dated April 28, 2021 for the May 3rd, 2021 meeting. Exhibit J, all public comments received between February 8th, 2021 and May 3rd, 2021. Exhibit K, email correspondence between zoning staff and Delaware County Engineer's Office between February 6, 2021 and May 3rd, 2021. Exhibit L, email correspondence between the applicant, Ohio Department of Transportation, and zoning staff regarding Route 3 between April 26, 2021 and May 3rd, 2021. At this time, I would like to call on Joe Schaefer on behalf of the Genoa Township Development and Zoning Department to present an overview of Exhibits H through I. Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have before you a memorandum that I'm going to read through. For those of you who have not sat through one of these meetings before, this is going to take a while. There's a lot of information in here. I go over a lot, so please bear with me, but we do this to read this into record and also make sure everyone in the room is on the same page in regards to the presentation. So with that, I'm going to jump right in. Also, I may read it a little quickly just to try to get through it as quickly as possible. So copies are available, public record. If you'd like to see a copy of it, you can just simply request one of my office.
Joe, before you get started,
yes, sir.
Let me just provide an overview so the audience kind of has a roadmap of where we're going and the timing of this. So you will be doing the staff report. Following the staff report, we will have an applicant's presentation. So the church will provide an applicant on from their perspective relative to the project. After that applicant presentation, that is when we will have public comment. We would ask that you come up to the dais. There is a microphone there. State your name, address, and limit your comments, if you will, to 3 minutes. Then we will have the applicant's response to those comments or to anything else that they would like to respond to. Then we will go into board discussion. If there are any divergences, we will review those divergences, and then we will act on any motions if there are any motions to be acted on. Then we will adjourn. So that kind of gives you a roadmap of where we're going to be heading this evening. So, Joe, go ahead and proceed, please.
Yes, sir. So jumping into the memo, this evening we have a proposed final development plan amendment application for Genoa Baptist Church located on approximately 87.8 acres, covering several parcels located at 7562 Lewis Center Road. The existing development contains the church, a school known as Genoa Christian Academy, a soccer field, and parking lots. The proposal includes a new standalone middle/high school building with a first floor area of 51,586 square feet, a second floor area of approximately 12,850 square feet, and a 1,070 square foot exterior entry canopy. The school would consist of approximately 14 standard classrooms, 4 lab classrooms, a music room with adjacent practice rooms, an art studio with storage and kiln space, offices, conference and instructional room, teacher's lounge, a gymnasium with supporting locker rooms, training room, weight room, and kitchen for concessions, a shared cafeteria/media center, common space for students, and various storage and mechanical rooms. An expanded parking lot. Also part of the project is an expanded parking lot and an additional parking lot to service the new school building, which consists of approximately 102 new spaces. Many of the new spaces will be directly in front of the school building. 35 of the spaces will be located within a secondary parking lot located west of the proposed soccer field, south of the newly proposed driveway out to Worthington Road. The church is proposing 7 evergreen trees at the bend of the newly proposed driveway out to Worthington Road. These plantings will supplement the existing vegetation within this vicinity. This will help to block headlights swinging through this curve from shining onto or being visible from homes located on the west side of Worthington Road. Proposal also includes a new 25-foot wide private access driveway connection to Worthington Road, as I already mentioned, which would line up in the current proposal with Via Florenza Drive in Mirasol. The proposal includes relocation of the existing soccer field further west. It had previously been approved at the location where the school building is now being proposed, and expansion of a play area adjacent to the existing church building. The existing play area is approximately 600 square feet. The proposed play area is 500 square feet in size, so combine that together, you have 1,100 square feet. Subject project would occur in one phase. The overall use of the site is not changing, just expanding. The existing property would remain in its location. The existing access points onto Lewis Center Road would not be altered in any way. And now I'm going to jump into some of the history of the site here. I'm not going to go into as much detail as we did in 2019 regarding permit numbers and all that whatnot, dating back to the beginning of time on this application, but the highlights of the history, just so we can get an understanding of how we got to here this evening. The first is Genoa Baptist Church Tract was rezoned to Planned Community Facilities Zoning District on May 11th, 2005. That was EC case number 2004-01. The church having been there, I believe, since the very late 80s is when it was originally built, or early 90s. The original plan submitted with this application spanned 9 phases to be constructed between 2004 and 2029. These plans included a large sanctuary, multiple school wings, sports fields, a standalone mission center building, and 2 driveways out to Worthington Road, one lining up with Sheffield Park Drive and the other lining up with the track that would eventually become Mirasol. Numerous applications between 2004 and now have been filed with the township covering a variety of topics and altering the original master plan. Plans approved on August 7, 2014 in ZC case number 2014-05 identified a 4-phase built-out of the site, including a children's theater, expansion of the main foyer, a new gymnasium, and a new 2-lane driveway out to Worthington Road. That, and I quote, aligns with the entrance to the new R&H subdivision north of Sheffield Park, end quote. The reference subdivision is what would become known as Mirasol. A zoning permit covering all these approved improvements, was issued by the zoning inspector but later became void because the subsequent final development plan amendment application further altering things was approved. A roadway connection in this vicinity was considered by the township during comprehensive planning efforts undertaken by the prior zoning inspector in 2013 and 2014. The intent was to improve east-west connectivity by extending Sheffield Park Drive, which connects to Africa Road via Jaycox, to State Route 3 and possibly onto South Old 3C Highway through a town center type of development. Said plan and the road idea were abandoned by the township in 2015 after the former zoning inspector left. Olivero Drive in the Vinmar Village and Reserve at Vinmar plans is the only component of this concept that was ever built, and obviously the town center did not happen either. Final development plan amendment approval was last granted August 28, 2019 via ZC case number 2019-05. This application cleaned up and addressed numerous outstanding items and changes from plans approved in 2014, including abandoning several previously approved improvements as well as authorizing the following. 1, a 56,431 square foot addition housing a new worship center, offices, and classrooms. 2, a 1,074 square foot drive-through entrance canopy for said addition. 3, expansion of the parking lot by approximately 93 spaces. 4, additional site lighting. 5, a second ground-mounted sign. 6, relocation of the existing soccer field. 7, addition of a play area. Zoning permits for the building expansion and signage approved under ZC 2019-05 were issued on October 31st and November 1st, 2019. Genoa Baptist Church also met all deadlines agreed to during the approval process on the 2019 plans. I should say all explicitly stated deadlines. There still are a couple of items on the site that they're wrapping up, obviously, as construction of the existing sanctuary nears completion. Those deadlines were: 1, installation of shields on existing lights, which was to be done by October 1st, 2019. That was completed. 2, completion of mounting and landscaping along Lewis Center Road to be completed by August 1st, 2020. That was completed. 3, removal of the large temporary sign by January 1st of this year. That was completed. And as I noted, all other not yet completed items will have to be completed upon final zoning inspection of the finished project. Most notably of these are the parking islands in the parking lot, and there was also some evergreen trees that are to be planted along the driveway that goes out to Lewis Center Road to help screen headlights. The plans and documents in this submission will serve as an addendum to the prior final development amendment approval on file from 2019, if approved. Any designs, agreements, etc. not expressly proposed for alteration in this subject application would remain in effect and enforceable per ZC 2019-05 in the aforementioned zoning permits. Moving on to traffic and access, and this is probably the biggest component of this entire review and the majority of this memo. Number 1, a copy of the traffic study approved by Delaware County on April 12, 2021 is included with the application materials. It indicates that a southbound turn lane on Worthington Road for the proposed driveway is warranted. The engineer's office review noted a site distance exhibit will be required if/when the applicant submits final engineering plans to said office. The applicant previously considered paying a fee in lieu of the improvements, but is opting to construct the turn lane instead. Zoning staff has not conducted a detailed review of this traffic study, as we are not certified traffic engineers. Staff relies and trusts the engineer's office to provide this service to the township. Furthermore, any disagreements with findings or methodology by staff would, practically speaking, be inconsequential due to the lack of authority on the matter. 2, the township likely cannot require any traffic improvements or signage via the zoning process due to lack of authority under Ohio law, or is my understanding, being not an attorney. Lewis Center Road, like Worthington Road, is owned and maintained by Delaware County. State Route 3, as previously noted, is owned and maintained by ODOT. Any further improvements to any of these roads and/or their intersections would have to be mandated by said agencies. Delaware County will be constructing a roundabout at Lewis Center /Worthington/Rome Corners Road in the next few years. In a presentation given to the trustees in early March, the Deputy Director of County Engineering noted that ODOT's current position is that a traffic signal at State Route 3 in Lewis was not warranted. It is unclear if the subject application changes that finding. During said presentation, the Deputy Director did note that additional turn lanes are being looked at for the intersection. Pardon me a moment. Thank you. The Genoa Township Fire Marshal has informed staff that he will be exercising a provision in the fire code which allows him to require an additional fire apparatus access road for the site based on the potential for impairment of a single road. As such, a secondary emergency access point on the road other than Lewis Center Road is necessary. The proposed Worthington Road access would satisfy this requirement. At 1, though the fire code only requires said access to be for emergency vehicles, both the fire chief and fire marshal have expressed to staff that they would recommend said road not be restricted to emergency vehicles only, but rather open to full public access as well, noting that additional means of egress would help traffic get off the site in case of an emergency. All traffic exiting the site onto Lewis Center Road during such a scenario could hinder the ability of emergency services, be it Genoa Township or another entity, to quickly access the property regardless of where said access point is located. 2, the fire marshal issued a letter dated April 7, 2021, stating that he agreed with the proposed access road out to Worthington Road, noting that the fire department had no opinion regarding where the intersection with Worthington Road should be located. Moving on to the driveway itself, a few factors to keep in mind as we review. A, the Delaware County Engineer's Office ultimately has the final say on the driveway. Zoning cannot override this decision. Grade safety factors are taken into consideration when these decisions are made, and obviously this fact exists because Worthington Road is Delaware County's road. B, Worthington Road is considered a arterial road by the county. In comparison, collector, low minor arterial. Unlike Lewis Center Road, numerous road improvements have been made or are actively being made to the Worthington Road corridor. C, ODOT will not allow a new driveway cut, be it full access or emergency only, on State Route 3 if another is available. Since other options are available, being Worthington Road and Lewis Center, access to State Route 3 does not appear. D, it's all subdivision final development plan approval on June 6, 2013. Section 1 of the plan was recorded on December 3, 2014. The first zoning permit for a non-model single-family home was issued on January 26, 2015. All three of these dates are within the period of Genoa Baptist Church having approved plans on file and available for public review, illustrating a driveway connection opposite of the Mirasol tract. And those were ZC case numbers 2004-01 and ZC 2014-5, respectively. Via Florenza has a lower speed limit than Worthington Road or Lewis Center Road and requires an unprotected left turn to be made onto Lewis Center to continue westbound on Lewis Center. F, Via Florenza is not a Via Florenza is a public road. As such, it must be open to all the public regardless of their route of travel or destination. Traffic violations on public roads, including speeding, are enforced by the Genoa Township Police Department and do not fall under the purview of zoning. The police department has not expressed any concerns or opinions to staff really one way or the other regarding the proposed driveway. G, the first lots in the two lots in the Mirasol subdivision, being the easternmost lots, are separated from Worthington Road right-of-way by open space spanning approximately 170 feet or more in depth. H, testimony from residents during the Zoning Commission's review of the application indicate that speeding and cut-through traffic by adjacent neighborhoods and/or construction vehicles working on homes within the development already exist within the proposed driveway being constructed, or without the proposed driveway being constructed, excuse me. Concerns expressed about potential future cut-through traffic, while practical, are technically speculative. J, final engineering approvals and permits are generally not issued by the county until after the zoning process has concluded. Moving on, for clarification, county engineering requires driveway out to Worthington Road, that I'm aware of. The county's position appears to be that said driveway, if provided, must abide by their regulations and design standards since it is located within the county right-of-way. A few notes on that. Staff does not know if the scope of the traffic study required by the county and/or the impact on traffic flow and by extension any warranted improvements would change if the proposed driveway was routed to another road other than Worthington Road or eliminated altogether. 2, per the county, an offset intersection from Via Florenza is not safe because left turns would be in a taper section. The best location, if a left turn lane is constructed, is to line up with Via Florenza Drive. If the left turn lane is not constructed, then their access would need to be about 250 to 300 feet from Via Florenza Drive. 3, staff has reached out to the engineer's office regarding if any kind of restricted access configuration would be allowable, as well as the possibility of a designated school zone. A response to these inquiries had not been received at the time of this memorandum's issuance. I'm going to go off script here just a moment. Since I issued this memo last week, I did have a phone conversation with Mike Love in the county engineers department. We did discuss whether or not some sort of restricted access configuration onto Worthington would be viewed as favorable, be it what's commonly known as sort of the pork chop design, where you have just a right into the site or a right out of the site. That sounded like a pretty hard no in my conversations with him. And we also discussed whether a configuration that would allow full access into the site, but just a right out of the site, sort of like a slip lane configuration, would be allowable. And that also sounded doubtful. The feedback I got was, number one, those types of limited access configurations are generally only reserved for very, very busy corridors. He said, think of something like a Sawmill Parkway where you've got multiple lanes there, a turn lane, tons of traffic going on. That's where they make the most sense. And even then, they don't always work because people still tend to drive over them with regularity, as is evidenced as you can go by them and usually see in a broken stop sign or a signpost sticking out of the ground where the no left turn sign used to be that someone that they were just going to ignore. The engineer told me that the revised code says that if a school is established that is a charter school recognized by the Ohio Board of Education. And I'm not sure how that notification process works, but once, I guess, that happens, they're required by law to sign the adjacent road or roads a school zone. He did tell me if that were to happen, he suspects that these would just be what he called hard signs, which means it would just be the signage. It wouldn't include the flashers like what you see down in front of like the middle school and the elementary school here on South Oak 3 Seed, because the flashers really are for areas where there's a lot of pedestrian activity and there's no sidewalks that are going to be leading to this school. There's not an expectation that there's going to be a lot of kids walking to the school. If it is posted as a school zone, it would just be the sign. Pardon me, one more time. Okay, jumping back into the memorandum. The applicant has provided additional detailed information pertaining to Worthington Road driveway location on pages 44 and 45 of the development text, as well as site distance exhibits. See 2021 C5 and 2021 C6 in the submitted materials. A, other locations for the driveway were evaluated, taking into consideration topography and other conditions. The applicant has determined the Via Florenza location is the only safe location of the driveway. B, regarding the direct Via Florenza alignment, the applicant found, and this is just my report of what they submitted to us. One, it is located where the standard drives would be located and is also likely the only location that would physically allow for construction of the required turn lane with the taper while still on the church's property. This conclusion was arrived by calculations involving required traffic lane stacking and associated turn lane tapers. The distance from Via Florenza to the site's northern property line is approximately 716 feet. 2, it would be located at the crest of the road in this area, which maximizes site distance of any locations on the northern end of the property. 3, traffic will be technically permitted to turn right, left, or go straight. The church will try to discourage members/school attendees from going straight. Markings will be placed on the exit lanes to try to discourage motorists from crossing Worthington Road into Mirasol. This will be accomplished by painting a left turn arrow and a right turn arrow, but not a straight through arrow. Delaware County will not permit any markings or signage not compliant with the county design standards in the Worthington Road right-of-way. Traffic speeds on Worthington Road and Lewis Center are both higher than Via Florenza, thus resulting in shorter travel times by utilizing the former routes. Obviously, that would be if the school zone is not in effect. Obviously, if the school zone's there, those speeds become a little more equalized. C, constructing the driveway entrance at 255 feet north of Via Florenza Drive is not a viable option, according to the applicant, for the following reasons. 1, per discussions with the county, this location worked when analyzing the location horizontally for clearance, but does not work when analyzing the site vertically. 2, this location fails to provide adequate site distance. The crest of Via Florenza Drive at Worthington Road blocks visibility of objects at the required distance. 3, there is insufficient right-of-way to the north of this location adjacent to the church to construct the required tapers. The design requirements for the turn lane warranted by the traffic study and the existing road layout at Sheffield Park Drive and J. Cox Road appear to make a safe and compliant relocation of the access further south of Via Florenza impractical, if not impossible. In staff's opinion, these are my notes. Installing a driveway access that can also be utilized by the public instead of an emergency-only access way, gated or otherwise, makes sense as it will help the existing traffic pressures on Lewis Center Road and State Route 3. B, aligning the proposed driveway with the turn movement between the two, therefore movement of traffic. In progress improvements along Worthington Road corridor make it a better option to receive additional traffic in comparison to State Route 3 and especially Lewis Center Road. D, moving the proposed driveway access to a different location on Worthington Road, moving it to a different road, and or eliminating it altogether seemingly only moves any potential impacts to residents in other areas of the township, not eliminate them, most likely disproportionately impacting residents living on Lewis Center Road and Treeline Court. Going into that a little further, rerouting the driveway to a different location further north would result in significant tree loss on the church's property, as well as would result in the driveway being located closer to the existing homes at 4227 and 4255 Worthington Road. And 2, relocating the driveway further south would require the church to demolish the house it owns at 461 Worthington Road, place it very close to the existing homes at 465 and 4711 Worthington Road, as well as the Worthington Gardens Park property. The location of the driveway does not violate the zoning resolution, as the document does not contain total prohibition against adding traffic to a local street. It merely states the community facilities be located, quote, so as to generate a minimum of traffic on local streets, and that was end quote to section 140601. In fact, installing the driveway would improve zoning compliance, as the current site is not conforming with the standard that a planned community facility on a site exceeding 20 acres have direct access to an arterial street, which is section 140607B of the zoning resolution. This site currently only has 2 access points onto a collector street. Constructing the driveway would not seem to cause an, quote, undue adverse impact on surrounding residents, as stated in section 140603, since it seems doubtful that an excessive amount of traffic would travel through Via Florenza to get to Lewis Center Road, especially considering some traffic will travel south down Worthington Road or north up Worthington Road and or Rome Corners Road, while other traffic will still utilize the Lewis Center Road entrance and head east on Lewis Center, north on State Route 3 or south on State Route 3. Some westbound traffic may also ultimately opt to use J. Cox Road and Big Walnut Road, depending on the final destination of the trip. The path of least resistance for the limited number of westbound travelers, specifically utilizing Lewis Center Road, would seemingly be either to, 1, exit via the existing driveway directly onto Lewis Center Road and head west, or 2, via the new driveway, turn right, which would be north onto Worthington, travel through the future roundabout, currently scheduled for approximately 2022 or possibly 2023 construction, and then continue west on Lewis Center Road. The number of student drivers coming in and out of the site in all likelihood will be relatively small. I believe the traffic study notes it are being around maybe 20. Only 9 of the proposed classrooms, excluding shared classrooms being music, art, gym, are identified as high school classrooms. These 9 classrooms will service students in 4 different grades, only a portion of which are eligible for driver's license. If the driveway is agreeable to the township, in staff's opinion, its location will potentially impact someone somewhere, therefore placing it in location deemed to be the relatively safest, most practical, and best fitting with long-term traffic improvement plans of all involved agencies would seemingly be the most sensible option. An emergency drive has been provided on the eastern end of the proposed school building, and now I'm talking about inward on the site, to address concerns expressed by the fire marshal regarding emergency access to the eastern and southern sides of the building. This design was agreed upon compromise in lieu of constructing a drive around the entire perimeter of the building. Unlike the drive on the western end of the building, which will look and feel like a dead-end service drive aisle, the eastern drive will look and feel more like a large sidewalk, which can be utilized by emergency vehicles should the need exist. Moving on into stormwater. The 2 existing stormwater management facilities will remain in the current locations. However, it appears the facility located south of the parking lot adjacent to Route 3 will be expanded to accommodate the proposal. The submission notes that the applicant is in discussions with the county engineer regarding final stormwater management designs. Updated stormwater management plans will have to be reviewed and approved by the county engineer for the project to proceed. Regarding signage, additional signage is being proposed for this development. It includes 3 building-mounted signs on the school, 1 mounted on the gymnasium, which is approximately 91.25 square feet, and 2 equal-sized 74 square feet each on both sides of the wall within the entry canopy. A large temporary sign is proposed to be erected along State Route 3 for the duration of the school's construction. The applicant has specified in the plan text that the sign will not be erected until zoning permit is obtained and would be removed no later than when the certificate of occupancy for the school has. The number of signs proposed for the site comply with township zoning restrictions. 3 of 3 permitted freestanding signs existing/approved, and 3 of 3 permitted building-mounted signs are. The cumulative amount of building-mounted signage on the property falls well under the total amount of signage the property is allowed by the zoning resolution. We're proposing approximately 239.25 square feet of the 1,128.93 permitted square feet under the code. Moving on to the site data table, I'm not going to read this in its entirety, but here you can just sort of see a lot of information I've gone through, just sort of table form. What you can see here is the demonstrated zoning compliance that this proposal has with all the dimensional standards regarding acreage, building square footage, building separation, maximum building height, the access, which I already touched upon. Open space, they're required to have 40% of the gross acreage as open space, which equates to 35.12 acres. They're proposing 67%, which calculates out to 58.9 acres. All of the setbacks are listed there. You can see that they're all compliant. Parking, The code requires them to have 789 spaces, and that's what they're proposing with the final build-out of this plan. Light pole height, it's 25-foot max. They're proposing 20 feet, so they're under the maximum restriction. There are no divergences requested at this time. Previously, when the zoning commission heard this, there had been a divergence regarding the number of parking spaces, because iteration was under park. There was some debate as to whether or not a divergence should be sought, or whether or not it made more sense to make them put in the parking. The applicant opted to just put parking, so they didn't have to have a divergence request on the record. Moving on to staff commentary on other items. On April 12, 2021, the Zoning Commission declared the subject application a major amendment pursuant to the terms of the Genoa Township zoning resolution. During said meeting, a motion to recommend approval of the subject application with verbally discussed conditions regarding the design of the Worthington Road driveway access failed by a vote of 2 to 3. A subsequent motion to recommend denial citing insufficient design of said access passed 3 to 2. Number 1, in regards to these facts, pursuant to the Genoa Township zoning resolution, all applications declared to be major amendment by the Zoning Commission, regardless of recommendation, are reviewed by the Board of Trustees. 2, the trustees may accept the recommendation of the Commission and deny the application, or reject the recommendation of the Zoning Commission and approve the subject application with modifications. Note, the Board does have the right to conclude the public hearing and then schedule another meeting for the sole purpose of making a motion and holding the vote. Said meeting would have to be within 20 days of the conclusion of the public hearing. If continuance or tabling is desired, staff strongly recommends that the applicant agree with such an action before a motion is made, seconded, and approved. Staff's technical review is attached to this memo, which I'll go through momentarily. Staff has reviewed understanding that current zoning standards can only be applied to any new or revised improvements, which have been approved, installed, and/or otherwise compliant and unchanged, are not required to be altered or brought up to code. Similarly, prior approvals cannot be revoked. The following is a list of staff recommendations for the proposal. Since these recommendations are not zoning restrictions, the applicant is not required to incorporate them into their plans, but I'm going to note them regardless. Number 1, constructing a multi-use path from the school down to the proposed entrance driveway to Via Florenza, as well as pedestrian crossing at Via Florenza to connect with the Mirasol sidewalk network if the county engineer determines that the latter could be done safely. I'll note that the applicant has reviewed this recommendation, has opted not to incorporate it into their designs. Number 2, a paved pedestrian path from the secondary parking lot west of the soccer field to the primary buildings should be considered, as it is possible this lot may be utilized as overflow parking for larger events, as well as pulling on property during election season. Similarly, a pathway from the secondary parking lot to the soccer field should also be established to provide a designated and easily traversable route. Both the recommended paths would be easier to be used by those with physical disabilities, strollers, etc. Note, the applicant also took this into consideration, but ultimately opted to not incorporate this recommendation into their designs. It should be noted that while the applicant has opted to construct the Worthington Road turn lane instead of paying a fee in lieu of at this time, final decision-making authority regarding traffic improvement matters, as previously stated, rests with the Delaware County Engineer. As such, the commitment to constructing the turning lane in any approved zoning plans may or may not be enforceable by staff if zoning approval is granted by the trustees. There is a possibility that arrangement could change after such an approval is issued. The applicant has indicated in their plan text that they understand that the location of improvements in the plan, if approved, are exact, not approximate. Alterations, changes, or relocations of improvements, including light poles, would require township authorization and may even require submission of another final development plan amendment application. For the record, and just for informational purposes, denial of the subject application would not preclude the church from reapplying for the same project or a different project in the future. Similarly, approval of the subject application would not preclude the church from filing future final development plan amendment applications to alter this approval, alter any previous approvals, and/or further expand on the property. If approved, the action of the board would be defined as an administrative action, not a legislative action, pursuant to the Genoa Township zoning resolution. Administrative actions by the board are not subject to referendum into sections 11302 and 70616 of the resolution. The legislative act of rezoning the property, as well as the subsequent referendum period, occurred in 2005 under ZC case number 2004-01. The applicant is aware that under the terms of the current zoning resolution, effective October 31st, 2020, final development amendment would be valid for 3 years, even if such terms are noted in the motion of approval. Should a zoning permit not be obtained or at least applied for and actively pending a decision, approval of the final development amendment will become null and void. If the plan becomes null and void, approval of such plans would have to be reobtained. The trustees may, without a divergence request, extend this 3-year period should they see fit. Such an extension should be noted in the motion of approval for the purposes of clarity, if one is made. All right, we're getting there, I promise. Jumping into the technical review, you will see by all the strike-throughs of the comments that the applicant has pretty much addressed all of the outstanding comments. The last outstanding comments from the prior review were, number one, the open space numbers weren't jiving between the plan text and the drawings. That's been cleaned up. And those are the numbers I read to you previously in the memo. I asked for sort of a more exhaustive list of the setback requirements on how they were meeting them, just to make it easier for enforcement purposes and make it clear for the record down the road. The open comments you see in the report are basically just informational comments. They're not action items. They're not compliance concerns. It's just information for the applicant and for staff to document for the record. We've already discussed the traffic study. We've already discussed the change. They're no longer doing the fee in lieu of the turn lane. They're going to do the turn lane. Maintenance did not provide me any comments for this review. We've already gone through the zoning commission's review. Really, the only other major changes between this and the iteration the zoning commission voted on, aside from the couple of technical items in the presentation materials I reviewed, was the addition of the arrows and some of the signage to try to prohibit the straight through movement from the proposed driveway over to Via Florenza. I think that was pretty much it as far as the actual changes on the site itself that you can see on the drawing. A lot of it was just cleaning it up to, again, make it clean for the record. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to take a breath, have another drink of water, and turn it back over to you.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Joe. At this time, we'll have the applicant's presentation. If you would, please identify yourself when you speak. Thank you.
Architect with the McKnight Group at 3351 McDowell Road in Grove City, Ohio, 43123. Also have Pastor Scott Leewald with the church. Craig Bartley, the superintendent of schools, is here with us as well. Aaron Heidinger, our civil engineer, and Todd Stanhope, our traffic engineer. So between the 5 of us, we should be able to answer any questions you might have. Just want to give a very brief introduction and background to the project, and then get really to the heart of the issue, which is the Via Florenza connection. The current project, which is under construction now, you may remember from last time we met, was in order to really provide more space for the school. The school was growing. They were occupying the church's multi-use worship space for indoor recess and plays, dramas of all sorts, graduations. And so that room was really getting used a lot. And so as the school continued to grow, the church felt that a new worship center was justified to give the church its own space to occupy. And so that took place. Now, that did not provide the school any more space, but it did help solve the church issue. And so the school has continued to grow. That's not surprising. And they are at the point now where they need more middle school and high school space. And so that is the justification for the project. The new building is middle school, high school only. And we believe that both the church and the school are an asset to the township. Many of the township's residents worship here. Many of the families in the township have children who attend school here. And so we don't view the growth of the school as a bad thing. We certainly view that as a good thing. But as the school grows, of course, with that will come increased traffic, and we understand that. And so the issue of this second drive is really warranted, we feel, for a number of reasons. Obviously, the fire department is requiring it. Now, they did, originally say that perhaps it could be fire department access only, or emergency access only, but more recently have said that that's really probably not the wisest thing. What if there's a second alarm or a third alarm, or other fire departments coming to help and they don't have the right radio frequency to open the gate? Or what if people are trying to exit and everybody's fleeing to Lewis Center Road, and then maybe emergency vehicles can't get in? So, they are recommending that it be open. But beyond that, the church really wants the additional access as well. It would be unfair to the residents on Lewis Center Road and Tree Line Court as the school grows to force the additional traffic their way. The church is trying to be very sensitive to those residents as well. On Sunday mornings, they have sheriff's deputies helping direct traffic. That's not been required by anybody. The church does that of their own free will. The reason for that is that if anybody's trying to get out from Tree Line Court, or out of a driveway along Lewis Center, they can stop traffic, allow the local residents to go, and then begin to let church traffic out again. So we think that the school is going to need this second driveway, and as has been discussed, I won't go into all the great detail, but we've looked at all the options. Okay, so we know Route 3 is not an option. ODOT has denied that. We've looked at the other two options. Again, Joe's done a great job of explaining why those are not going to work. The south option is too close to, what's the name of the road south? Sheffield, thank you, Sheffield Park. The turn lane there would be too close to their turn lane, and so that would be a conflict and a danger. And as was pointed out, moving north to 250 to 300 feet would put the new driveway access too low, and with the rise there would cause a blind spot, and so also probably not a good option. We understand completely, well, maybe not completely, but we feel for the neighbors in Via Florenza, and as they have shared, they're having people come through the neighborhood now. We do feel like part of that is probably due to the fact that there's a stop sign at Lewis Center Road, and so it's completely understandable, especially in the afternoons as people are coming home from work. If they see that there's a backup at the stop sign, it's pretty tempting perhaps to take a left, try to get through the neighborhood to speed up a little bit. There are several things with that. The plan, of course, with the county, Delaware County, is to do a traffic circle at that intersection, which should alleviate, when that's completed in 2013, should alleviate the backup issue. And so we're hoping that would prevent or de-incentivize people from trying to go through Marisol, because that would be a much worse option, right, than just going around the traffic circle, going north or west. So that is one issue. If you're coming from the church's property trying to go west on Lewis Center, we think either going out the north exit from the church's property and then left on Lewis Center and then around the roundabout and continuing west would certainly be the fastest option. The second fastest option would be to come out this new drive at Worthington Road, go right, which is north, and then 3/4 of the way around the roundabout and then west. Marisol, of course, would be at that point the worst of all the options about how to get through. And so again, if there aren't backups at that intersection, we hope and would believe that would not be as big an issue as it would be today. The church's project, the school project, is not scheduled to be completed, if approved, until 2013, and that's actually the same time again. I'm sorry? Thank you, 2023.
Yeah,
I've had a long day.
I understand.
Yeah. And so that is the same time as the roundabout getting completed, and so those should work well together, we believe. We've got, again, multiple exhibits early as 2004 and 5 that the zoning department has had that has shown a drive in this location. And then again in 2014, our civil engineer actually came across a traffic study that was completed by Delaware County in 2012, which also showed a drive in that location. And so, this is not a surprise. We hope it's certainly been planned on. It's been known by multiple groups, multiple governmental agencies. And so, again, this is not a new idea or a new development. A few things about the connection. We are trying to limit the amount of tree line that is cut down. And so most of that tree line that's along the western edge of the church's property on Worthington Road would remain. And so traffic coming that way, headed west toward Worthington Road, headlights would be basically blocked by the tree line until you get right to the intersection. And so, again, we're trying to be good neighbors in that regard and help prevent the headlight traffic, or the headlights coming across the road. The issue for the church is, again, the left turn lane. The church feels strongly that the people from the church, from the school, coming out to Worthington Road should have the opportunity to go left and not have to be forced to go right around the roundabout and then back south. So take Sunday mornings, for example. If everybody's coming out at one time, some, of course, would go east to Route 3. Many would go to Lewis Center and go left. But then if everybody coming out this drive to Worthington Road is forced up to the roundabout as well, then half or more of all of the church people will end up in that roundabout. Allowing them to go left would alleviate that and give more opportunities for disbursement of traffic. As Mr. Schaefer pointed out, it is more compliant to allow the drive. In fact, the current section 1406.07.b says that any planned community facility on a site exceeding 20 acres is to have direct access to an arterial street. And Worthington Road is, Lewis Center is not. And so, for a number of reasons, we think that this is justified. We are, again, the church is willing to do anything in their power to prevent through traffic except preventing the left turn lane out on that Worthington Road connection. It's been abundantly clear from the neighbors, and we've heard in emails and in public hearing, that they do not want the through traffic coming through their neighborhood, and we agree. We don't want that either. And so the things that the church is willing to do, is proposing to do, is again to stripe the exits right only and left turn only. We are also willing to put up a sign on the property, church's property, outside the road of right of way as you're approaching that intersection that says no through traffic, right arrow only, left arrow only. Again, there's really no way to enforce this, but the church has said that they are certainly willing to educate their people, their church, their school families, ask them to not go through straight. But of course, Delaware County has already said very clearly that's not a policeable sign. They cannot. It's not a ticketable offense if somebody goes straight through, because again, Via Florenza is a public road, and you cannot prevent through traffic. And so, the church is willing to do anything in their power to prevent the through traffic, except giving up that left turn lane out onto Worthington Road. So for a number of reasons, again, we think the drive is justified. It's been known for a number of years, and we're trying to do things to help with the headlights coming across the road, and trying to prevent in every other way possible any traffic coming across the road. Just very briefly, I'll mention the architectural design. It's maybe not germane at this point, but we are trying to complement the existing architecture of the church. We're trying to use the same materials, the brick, the stone, the concrete block. We're adding some glass and metal, and so doing our very best to make this an asset to the township and a beautiful facility for the residents, the families with students that attend this school. With that, I will close, and unless, Scott, if you have anything you want to add. Okay. We're prepared to answer any questions you might have.
Joe, any comments, questions, follow up on that? The board right now? Do you have anything? Okay. All right, at this time, we will go into public comment, and again, if anyone walked in that did not get sworn in, raise your hand. I think everyone did. I don't see. Oh, you did? Okay. If you would stand, don't swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God. You're sworn in. Okay, so we all are sworn in. Joe will be keeping the time, if you will, 3-minute limit. And however you want to handle that, as far as normally what we can do is we can kind of go across the road so we don't have a mad rush, but it's however you want to do it. So whoever wants to be first, come on up. We can get it started. Okay? I was going to say, we'll start going down roads if not. Again, name, address. Thank you.
Mask on or off?
I'm sorry?
Mask on or off?
However you're comfortable.
Steve Piper, 7 via Florenza Drive. First, I would like to thank the church members and the church leaders for their support in the community. I am requesting they listen to their neighbors' concerns tonight. I oppose the entrance across Marisol. I have serious concerns about the traffic that we via Florenza Drive is a safety of our neighborhood children. I am also concerned about potential accidents and injuries that will happen from the proposed exit. In the letter dated February 4th, the fire marshal, the church was given notice that they needed additional access to their property from Worthington Road. Ohio Fire Code Section B 503.1.2 requires additional access for fire apparatus. It does not require additional exits. The church continues to stress the need of the location based on sight, line, and left turn. If there is no exit and only access for fire apparatus as required by Section 5.1.2, there is no need for the entrance to be across Marisol. A utility company access to the church property is currently being built south of the community gardens. I am asking that the church provide an access-only road for fire apparatus as required by this section B 503.1.2. Additional access to the south of the utility access. In a letter dated April 7th from the fire marshal, again, section B 503.1.2 is referenced. I would like to point out the final sentence of the letter. We have no opinion of where the access roadway would intersect onto Worthington Road. Again, reference is made to access, no exit. The entrance and exit we are here about today is not for a public school, it is for the church and for a private school. The church, the private school, and anything on the church property. The church business is using the fire code requirement as an excuse to add additional entry and exit to benefit the business model. They want the additional entrance and exit to allow them to increase their membership and revenue. If you, our elected trustee, allow the proposed entrance to exit, as the church and school increase attendance, so will potential safety hazards for the Marisol children and Worthington. Either the church or their business representative have ever reached out to me or any of my neighbors that I am aware of to see what we feel acceptable. We are telling you tonight what we want. I am asking you, the Board of Trustees, listening to the concerns and ideas presented tonight by the taxpaying, voting residents of Genoa. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, who's next? Okay. No. We don't until you start talking. Pretty Lindy.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lisa Hampel, and I reside at 6818 Via Florenza. There were many factors that played into the decision to build our home in Genoa Township, with safety and walkability of our beloved black lab, Moochie, being key. We believed we were building a home that we could age in gracefully in a quiet neighborhood of just 82 homes in a township that appeared to prioritize residents over development. My neighbors all have their own stories. Some moved here to raise their families, some to enjoy retirement, but each and every one of us anticipates the ability to safely and quietly enjoy our property, our homes. When the church came before the trustees in 2019 to build its new 1,500-seat worship center, it was required to meet zoning code by having 2 access points. The church has 2 such points, but has decided to turn a simple statement from the fire marshal requiring an additional emergency access into a plan that includes an all-access drive and intersection at Worthington Road and Via Florenza. The traffic study provided by the church may satisfy the county, but it does not satisfy this resident, nor should it satisfy the trustees. The church has failed to provide the impact that this intersection will have on safety. The proposed drive and intersection will not just be used by students, as the church would have us believe, but instead will include traffic associated with those 1,500 worship center seats filled twice every Sunday, traffic associated with Bible study held each week, traffic associated with events such as weddings and funerals, traffic associated with voting. Drivers accessing the church grounds could turn both left and right, both into and out of the property. All of this directly competing with similar movements from Marisol residents who are simply trying to enter and exit our own subdivision. Common sense tells us, just as there's cut-through traffic from Sheffield onto Via Florenza, there will also be cut-through traffic from the church to Via Florenza when our roadway was designed only for neighborhood traffic. There have been many recent improvements in the name of safety. Big Walnut Road was straightened. The current Worthington Road project will remove the rolling hills. And the intersection of Lewis Center and Worthington Road, which is a mere 1,000 feet from the proposed intersection, will soon be converted to a roundabout. It would be a grave error to make all these corrections only to allow the creation of a new safety issue. In closing, the zoning resolution adopted on October 31, 2020, states its purpose is to promote and protect the health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the present and future inhabitants of Genoa Township while protecting all residents. As a resident of this township, I'm asking for protection. I'm asking that the trustees ensure the safety and welfare of my family, my friends, my neighbors. I'm asking that the trustees prioritize residents over development. I'm asking the trustees to vote no to the church's proposal for an all-access drive and intersection and only allow a restricted emergency access as required.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, come on up there. I was just going to head that direction.
Thank you for hearing us. My name is Jeff Brader, and along with my wife Marita, we live at 6569 Via Florenza Drive. For about 5 years. We have 8 grandchildren, and 6 of those have attended the wonderful Genoa Academy for preschool, and I have 2 currently. They do a remarkable job with instilling morals, teaching Christian values, and help raising all of our children. It is evident with I am, however, that access abutting to Via Florenza Drive. I feel any here is against children is a valid concern. When I've asked if there's been any conversations or dialogue the church has had with the residents, the response has been there's been no direct meetings with residents to explore options to address these concerns. If someone within the leadership team lived on Via Florenza Drive, I'm sure there would be some dialogue and meetings to solve this issue. I've been in the mortgage business for 40 years, and I own my own company. No company or church is going to be perfect in their business or operating practices. One thing I learned early on, customers upset. Even if they're out of line or off base with a complaint, back and ignoring them is not solving nor showing compassion for their concerns. Even if you can't solve completely to their satisfaction, listened and you had open dialogue, usually there is a resolution that's acceptable to all parties. So to have a vote on a project without addressing the concerns that have been raised prior to this meeting, to me, is not the right action. With that said, if that is the approach taken, even though the Genoa Christian Academy has done so much for my family, I would have to vote no, because it's not the right thing to do, and it's not the right approach.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Why don't we just keep my yes? Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Sandra Serio, and my husband Joe and I reside at 6682 Via Florenza Drive. First, I wanted to state that I have been in the mortgage industry myself for 42 years. I did my homework, and I did come to zoning and requested information about the land opposite Marisol entry of Via Florenza off Worthington Road. I was told that Genoa Baptist Church owned that land, and that the community gardens was also there, and that was part of the park system of Genoa Township, which was fine. I was raised Southern Baptist. I think it's a fabulous church. I have no opposition whatsoever with the church in the community of what they're doing. However, when I did request what would be planned, I was told there was no master plan that was viewable at the time. This would have been spring of 2016. So hearing Mr. Schaefer read and state that there was known information out there about ingress-egress onto Worthington Road opposite our subdivision, that was not shared with me or my husband. So in any event, I wanted to make that comment. Secondly, I want to stress very strongly my opposition of the proposed ingress-egress onto Worthington Road for safety concerns. Convenience should never, ever trump safety, and that's my personal opinion. Again, I want to make it clear that I have nothing against the church and all the goods that are being done to the community and for the community. I think that's wonderful, but I think we need to focus on safety and what's best for the residents. Via Florenza is a very narrow road to begin with a fire lane on the north end of that property, all the way down from Worthington Road exiting onto Lewis Center. So I think that also needs to be brought into consideration. And I also agree with Mr. Brader's comments. I think that it's imperative that our neighbors, be it business, commercial, church, residents, all sit down and talk about any proposals so that we don't feel that we don't have a voice. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Joe Serio. I live at 6682 Via Florenza. I have a letter from RNH on behalf of the Homeowners Association that I'd like read into the record. I've also got a petition signed by 35 or 36 households of the 40 that are inhabited currently in Marisol. No one that I spoke with, no household would refuse to sign, and the only folks that didn't sign are folks that I wasn't able to get to because they're out of town or unavailable. Now, my background is in law, and I look at what's going on here, and I'm a little concerned because the traffic study that was done would never stand up to any scrutiny under cross-examination. It's incredibly flawed, and the church got exactly what they paid for in that study, which is what they wanted it to say. Via Florenza is one of the 4 roads impacted by this proposal. There's one sentence addressing Via Florenza in that traffic study, and it ignores the fact that people aren't going to go 25 miles an hour down that street, and it ignores the fact that that street's a half a mile long before anybody has to turn. I've also heard that they've explored every option possible, and that's not true. One of the options available to them is to branch their entrance and exit into a Y. If you look at the high school on Lewis Center by 23, they have a separate exit and entrance to the right and a separate exit and entrance to the left. That absolutely precludes anybody going straight across in either direction. That would solve everybody's needs and keep people from cutting through the neighborhood. I talked to the maintenance department about what could be done to address speed in our neighborhood. They said you can put up signs, but people ignore them. You can put in speed bumps, but they don't work, and we don't allow them anyways, or you can have the police enforce it. So unless we're going to get police enforcement, whenever there's an event or whenever there's school, you're basically telling us it's the wild, wild west, and anybody can speed up and down that street as much as they want, which puts my children, my grandchildren, pets, everybody's lives at risk. That's unacceptable. The other thing I want to point out is there's 40 homes there right now. There's going to be 82. That means that based on the auditor's website, we pay over $60,000 a year in taxes that directly go to Genoa Township. When all the homes are built, there's going to be over $120,000 coming out of that neighborhood that supports Genoa Township. The church and all their buildings is zero. Every one of the residents in Via Florenza, 40 houses, at least 80 residents, they're all taxpayers and voters. There's going to be up to 82. Every one of them expects and demands that their elected officials listen to what they have to say and protect them. That's what local representation is supposed to do. The other problem we've got is, again, the church hasn't talked to us at all. And my background in utility law was that's exactly the way the utilities reacted to us whenever we were involved in a situation. They had the upper hand, and they, quite frankly, didn't care what we had to say. Now, to me, if the church's mission is Christian-based, then a Christian-based church wouldn't put the convenience of not having to go right into a turnaround and then go south over the concerns that people are going to get hurt. Their own traffic study says 1,000 cars a day. So if 10% use it as a cut-through, that's 100 a day. That's 500 a week. That's almost 18,000 per school year. And that's not counting the extracurricular activities. You get a statistician to tell you what happens when you increase 20,000 plus trips a year through that neighborhood. It's inevitable. There's going to be an accident because you can't keep kids from running into the street, and drivers are going to exceed the 25 miles an hour. It's a recipe for disaster. In fact, it goes from reckless to negligent behavior. And I think you should act accordingly and either make the church modify their plan or reject it outright. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, keep going, yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Mickey Geslack, 6246 Via Florenza Drive. I'm here to express my concern and opposition about creating anything more than a fire safety entrance on Worthington Road for the Genoa Baptist Church School. My wife and I have paid a lot of money for our Marisol house and pay a lot of property taxes to live in a subdivision with a normal subdivision traffic, not a development where people cut through to get to the Genoa Baptist School or a school event because it's more convenient. In addition to young children, I'm throwing a plug in for the older gentlemen, because in the development, there's walkers that walk at all times through the development. And so I have seen, as I'm walking in that development, young drivers speeding. I also had a vehicle come very close to me while walking. Due to him not paying attention, his head is down, so I can only speculate he is probably looking at his phone. I should not have to be concerned about walking through my development or children playing because of the increased risk of drivers who don't live in the development, creating an unsafe environment for those who do. For those of you who are considering voting for the church or the proposal, I have two questions. Would you want the increased traffic where you live due to the drivers taking a shortcut through your neighborhood? Or how would you feel if someone was seriously injured by a driver in a hurry on their way to school or a school event. Regardless of what the speed limit is posted, I have seen people speeding, not paying attention driving through our development. Why would the students or the parents of the people who go to Genoa Baptist Church be any different? The entrance to the school should not be a zero-sum game where only the church wins and everyone else loses. Who really benefits from having a regular, not just a safety entrance on Worthington across from the Marisol entrance? Certainly not the people who live in the Marisol development, where the roads clearly are going to become less safe. Certainly not big walnut schools that will receive little or tax dollars from the development. Appears to me only the church benefits from a regular entrance. From a safety standpoint, the proposed safety entrance most likely should never be used. I've heard a lot of people saying about events that could happen, but if you look, it's really unlikely to require fire safety to come to the to the school. And if they do, the Genoa Township Fire Department would come from the Lewis Center Road entrance, not the Worthington Road entrance. I'm not against building the school. I have a master's degree. I appreciate schooling or the fire or safety entrance. I only ask that it be done in a fair and safe manner for all the stakeholders, not just the church. And in closing, the Marisol residents pay an enormous amount of taxes and a cost for their house and vote, which is something, for the most part, Genoa Baptist Church doesn't do. Pay a lot of taxes and we vote. Please keep that in mind when you vote. Thank you.
I'm going down this way. Yes, sir.
Hello, I'm Kirk Dotson. I'm at 4838 Ramblewood Drive. I'm hearing a lot of concerns, a lot of worries about the traffic going through. I live in the neighborhood next door in Sheffield Park. I'm at the last road all the way near Africa, so I have to come through our neighborhood all the way. Right next to us, we have Jaycox, which is 45 miles per hour. Ours is 25. If I'm going south on Worthington, I'm taking Jaycox. Even though I have to turn right and then go left to go around, it is still quicker. And if I am coming north, then I will take Sheffield Park. The biggest speeders we see are in our neighborhood, our own residents. Unfortunately, we do see that on our site and everything like that. We see the same cars over and over again. I'm not saying that there won't be speeders that won't come from the outside or anything like that. We don't even know if there will be increased traffic. Probably there will be, it's only logic, but I do in Genoa. I do use their facilities. I am a member of great alternative from our public school, schooling, or anything like that. For us, we have a choice for our family, and I want others to have that choice as well to be able to utilize this. I don't think anybody here is saying that we don't need the school or doesn't want the school. We're more worried about an entrance at this point. I don't have a recommendation or a forceful to say, wait, this or not. What I'm saying is what this school does and what it's going to need, and that this is it is well. I believe that the school is trying to take the concerns. Have they not talked to them? Turn this evidence. I understand that, but they are trying ways to enter to the school and trying to come up with the best solution overall. They are trying to take precautions to try not to do that, but we can't do anything legally from that throughput. But they're trying to do everything they can from their power to be able to do that and to listen to their concerns. I do appreciate your time, and I thank you for what we have.
Thank you. Well, along the wall. Oops. Okay, whatever the next row would be, or anyone else. Yes. Yes, come on up.
My name is Heather Weinclaw. I live at 6800 Via Florenza in Marisol, my husband and my 9-year-old daughter, Reagan. First, let me say that we moved to Genoa Township because it's a beautiful and a safe place to live. We want to be good neighbors, and I believe everyone from Marisol who's here tonight does as well. Many of our neighbors have spent countless hours on this issue, researching, sharing information, educating others, and meeting as a group to discuss our views and options for consensus. None of which time was spent speaking to church leadership, by the way, as they never extended an olive branch to understand our concerns or discuss alternatives to my knowledge. The main concern on everyone's heart is safety. We have come together as a neighborhood because we truly care about each other, and we can't bear the thought of what harm a preventable accident could cause to our community. Not only do we care about the safety of the residents in our township, but we also care about the safety of visitors. If the fire marshal believes it is necessary to have a fire access, we do not oppose that. We do, however, oppose an expanded entrance and exit that would become a thoroughfare for outside traffic to use our residential neighborhood as a cut-through. We all know that there are issues with the intersection of Worthington Road and Lewis Center. That's a fact, obviously, given the roundabout plan for the intersection. Another fact is signage does not work to control traffic, which is proven by the excessive number of accidents in this intersection yearly. Adding another traffic stream into the mix is only going to increase the number of accidents. Desire to avoid this problematic intersection will increase the amount of church and school traffic using our neighborhood as a cut-through. The right thing to do would be continue to route traffic out Lewis Center Road to force them through the new roundabout, a proven method to promote safety. The emergency entrance should be just that, gated for emergency vehicles only. As a physical barrier is critical to ensure compliance, as previously mentioned, signage is not an effective preventative measure. Any other solution would leave the door open for future expansion of the road as the church continues their development. I also find it ridiculous the earlier comment that a pork chop divider would not be desirable due to drivers driving across or through the barrier, but expect school zone signage, miles per hour, or painted arrows on the ground to be effective. That makes no sense. I hope the trustees will listen to our residents and voters of our township and take our concerns seriously. The safety of all of our families, residents, and visitors alike is our primary concern, and we all desire to avoid even one preventable accident which could end in tragedy. Thank you.
Thank you. And you can pull the microphone down so you can speak into it.
Hi, my name is Reagan Burden. I live at 6 Drive. There's and kids are going to be playing outside, or going to school on their bikes, or walking, and it's going to be likely that a car is going to hit them.
Okay, thank you.
That's a tough one to follow. What she said. My name is Tom Weinkel. I live at 6800 Via Florenzo. You just met my wife and my stepdaughter. I opposed a new road mainly because of the fact that it's to comply with fire marshal access road, and it's not a reason to do a thoroughfare like everyone else meant. I also about the fact that the church is I think some of this could have been avoided. I don't know, it doesn't seem logical to me that a traffic study being done during COVID would be valid. Just throwing that out there. There's, I also about, the roundabout is 1,000 feet from the entrance to Marisol. Traffic study or no traffic study, there's a little bit of a blind spot there, right? It might not be per state requirements, but there's a little bit of a blind spot. If you got kids coming out of the school and church with that blind spot there, with smaller drivers in those cars, there's going to be a problem. If anyone doubts it, go pull out, make a right out of Marisol, and you'll see what I'm saying. But the biggest concern is really just the safety of our children and our residents. And we surely would not want to do anything to put their lives at risk. If for some reason there needed to be more than what was required by the fire marshal, Again, I agree with my wife about the pork chop. That makes no sense. As already stated, there's a school in town that does the same thing. And it does not make sense that that's not a viable option and that you're going to go right through the stop sign in the middle of the pork chop. That doesn't make sense to me as well. So just, from my standpoint, really just a safety aspect, and I think we're turning a access point into a thoroughfare, which is not what is required at this time.
Thank you. Back to this? Yeah, sure. Yeah, just step up.
Good evening. I'm Rob Walker, and I live at 6818 Via Florenza, and I oppose the new intersection at Worthington Road. Since we've lived on Via Marisol or Via Florenza, we've seen an increase of traffic dramatically. It's like Worthington Road has kind of become an expressway from the folks that live up in Sunbury down. An excessive amount of traffic going down to Polaris and Gemini, that's the way they go. When they come north in the evening, the stop signs, they're going to cut through our neighborhood. They have been, or they cut down through some of the other neighborhoods. Few drivers appear to really use the speed limits. I was almost rear-ended just a couple weeks ago by a car. Currently, we're seeing more and more traffic just cut through almost all the neighborhoods, and I just see that as an accident. It's a bad accident's going to happen here shortly. So I understand that the fire marshal wants a exit, and that's fine. And if it was gated, I think most of us all agree with that would be fine. I have no problems with a church or a school there, that's fine. We just want a safe neighborhood. And I drove past the church yesterday, and I see they have 2 entrance exits that were being used yesterday afternoon, so they've got 2 entrances there. If this other one that's proposed on Worthington Road could just be gated, I think everyone would be okay. Anyway, I urge the trustees tonight to vote no on this proposal, and just for the public safety of all the residents of Marisol and for the whole Genoa Township. Thank you.
My name is Debbie Deeker. I live at 6614 Via Florenza Drive, and I agree with a lot of the previous things said. I just have some scribbles here, but my biggest concern is that intersection. As has been mentioned, the blind spot, the huge amount of traffic. I heard mentioned something about how Worthington was a minor road. Maybe years ago it was. It is a very major road. There is way more traffic on Worthington than Lewis Center now. Like he just mentioned, a lot of people come from Sunbury. That's how you get to Polaris. Is down Worthington. So now we're going to put another road across from it. We're going to have people turning left and right with a blind spot on a busy road. It's just a question of how many accidents, how often, and how serious. And the comment about 20 high school drivers, I mean, all juniors and seniors are old enough to drive. So there's probably going to be a lot more than that. So now we're adding inexperienced drivers to the mix. And I just think all of that, again, it's not safe. You know, just putting all that together is just asking for trouble and for accidents, and you'd hate to, have someone get killed there when all of this has gone on and know that it would have been avoided. I just have.
Thank you. Anyone else on this side? Sir.
My name is Jeff Ward, 6638 Via Florenza. One thing I have learned is I should have hired some of my neighbors as a speechwriter because they've done some good work. Hey, I'm here to oppose the entrance as currently proposed, obviously for the reasons discussed, the increased traffic and the safety concerns that go along with that. We were asked in the zoning commission meeting to not just oppose it, but to come with proposals, solutions. I think we've done that. One of the ones that I wanted to mention is the right out I've heard some reasons why that maybe isn't appropriate. One of them is that there's not enough traffic to justify it. I think when you consider that, first of all, they want an additional exit, that suggests that there is some traffic that's leaving there. It's obviously going to grow. There's also today a traffic cop that was mentioned earlier. So there is a lot of traffic there. When I looked at the traffic study that was, I think, in March, it shows that only 17% of those exiting would plan to turn left or go south on Worthington. So what that means is that we're talking 83% of the people exiting would not be impacted by a right in, right out. So the question is, do we want to prioritize the convenience of 17% of those exiting over the safety of our neighborhood? And Joe mentioned this Y or pork chop option, which would then eliminate even the inconvenience of that 17% turning left. So I think we've come up with some reasonable solutions. I ask the board that you do not prioritize convenience over safety, and that you support the wishes of your residents, taxpayers, and voters. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Yes.
Mark Hartman, 4430 Ramble Drive. Now I'm here to support our neighborhood in opposing this. I'm pro-growth. I'm pro-church, schools, public and private. So it already sounds like you've got members that are using your services, and you're doing a fantastic job here. So I'm here just to represent our neighborhood as one more voice, that for safety, we would look for you to vote no on this and find other solutions, because we want you to grow. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is John Istvan, and I live at 6893 Via Florenza Drive. I would like to express my concern over the increased traffic on the two-lane road, Worthington. My biggest concern is the proposed increased traffic that may be coming from not only the additional classrooms for preschool, grade school, but the addition of the high school. In my opinion, these are socially needed, given the direction of the secular schools today, and Genoa does an awesome job. But they come at a cost. The cost is the increased traffic associated with the parents dropping off their children in the morning and returning to pick them up in the afternoon, plus the many return trips for after-school activities. Not only will the above be happening, but after COVID-19, there will be an increase in church attendance on Saturday night and Sunday. There will be other church activities such as Awana, concerts, Bible conferences, and Bible studies in ever-growing numbers. Have you looked to the north lately? New homes, apartments are being built. Route 3 is busy. You'll find more and more people coming down Route 3, stopping at Plum Road, and turning down to come down to Worthington, because it's a direct access to I-71. A growing number of people are going to be coming to Genoa to vote, 8,000 to perhaps 10,000, with all the new homes and apartments in this area, not north of us, just in this area. Do you think this is all going to get better? No, this traffic will continue to increase, and accidents will show their ugly heads as people lose patience and rush to get to their next appointment. I advise the trustees who are making these decisions to be extremely cautious, because you are going to end up with an intersection similar to Big Walnut and Worthington, but with no light. The police and EMTs will be busy if you approve this.
Good evening. My name is Alice Geslack, and I live at 6246 Via Florenza Road. And I really don't have anything to say. I agree with my previous residents. I feel that it will be a safety hazard, especially on Via Florenza. And when I looked at the fire department's letter, again, it goes back to all they need is an apparatus road for them to get into in case there's a fire at the Baptist church. So I ask that all members of the trustee take what we're talking about, look at the safety, and vote accordingly. Thank you.
Thanks.
My name is Ann Istvan, and I live at 6893 Via Florenza Drive. And we're the lucky ones who have gotten to live on the corner of Via Florenza and Worthington Road for the last 5+ years. First point being, we have been privy to the changes on Worthington Road because we live on it 24/7, 365. We have renamed it Alternate Route 3. It has become a major thoroughfare from the north with all the new developments. It offers direct access to Polaris and the I-71 interchange down there. They use the light at Plum Road onto Worthington, and then they head south to avoid Route 3. Traffic coming from the south going to the north also avoids Route 3 by using Worthington Road to Lewis Center, Plum Road, etc. And it's only going to increase. There are also children's sports practices and games on that park area at the fields next to Genoa's property on Worthington Road, and an increased interest in the community gardens next to that, which has been expanded, all in the vicinity of the proposed intersection. More need for safety. The speed limit on Worthington is 45 miles per hour, if you're lucky. It's generally more than that. Traffic study to me is a bit incomplete. The school is adding more classes for next year. They offer vacation Bible school between 500 and 800 children for a week during the summer. They host a large voting precinct of over 9,000 registered voters. Upward bound sports for dozens of children, extra Christmas and Easter services, family fun days, etc. This adds hundreds of extra car traffic per year on their campus and onto our limited streets. And access onto Worthington Road would be a nightmare. Thirdly, when I saw their plan for access to Worthington Road with left and right turns in every direction, I was stunned. It's a death trap of turns and crossing over lanes onto high-speed oncoming traffic. It reminded me of the Big Walnut intersection without the light. No thought has gone into this plan other than unloading their parking lots with no safety concerns for their own people or the community. Maybe instead of wasting thousands of dollars on death trap exits, they should hire a professional logistics engineer to help them manage their parking lots, staggering activity and school times, and putting more time between worship services, a huge need which makes for a much safer and organized exit process of their current and adequate exits, and not putting our community at rest for years to come by dumping cars onto Worthington. Their goal isn't about necessity, but impatience. More thought needs to go into this with safety as the first concern for all. The law only requires access by the fire department, but I would like to suggest a right turn lane only onto their property from the south into their campus, and this would help alleviate some traffic at the Lewis Center intersection. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. I'm Heidi Moore. I'm at 6 Via Florenza Drive, and I also am in opposition to the project unless the planned road off Worthington can be deemed emergency access only. I do feel that the church is taking advantage of the fire marshal's recommendation, additional emergency access point. My family and I previously lived in Lewis Center. We lived in a neighborhood that included an elementary school. I witnessed parents on a daily basis cutting through our neighborhood, cutting through our streets, rushing to get their kids to school. Nobody obeyed the speed limits. That is exactly what will happen with our neighborhood here as well. We did choose to move to Genoa Township to get away from the higher traffic neighborhood. We purposely chose a small neighborhood with little traffic by allowing school, church, and event traffic to utilize this entry point. You are putting the children, grandchildren, active outdoor walker and joggers in a higher jeopardy of getting hit by a distracted driver or driver not obeying the speed limits. We want our daughter to safely ride her bike, skateboard, and play outside with friends. As a parent, there's always fear that your child's safety when they leave the house to go play outside. Please do not add another layer of fear with this possibility of increased traffic utilizing our neighborhood. By allowing this to be an in-out access, you are taking away our safe, low-travel community. We encourage families to have the option of a religious education, as we chose that for my daughter when she was younger, and I had that for myself. I'm willing to do anything for your church to provide a religious education, except in lieu of safety of my child and members of our community. All I'm asking is for this road up Worthington to be deemed emergency access only. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Calla Moore at 6695 Via Florenza Drive. A couple of days ago, I was at my friend's house. I witnessed something. A little girl was playing in the road. I saw a car coming in it and was a driver looking at the front. I got nervous. I didn't care if it was emergency. They still could have go home and look at it. I know adults in this room can admit they've looked on their phones while driving. But when I looked at my friend, I said, "Does this happen often?" She said disappointingly, "All the time." She lived in a neighborhood that had a school connected to it. It was JCS. I used to go to JCS. I've seen in irresponsible drivers trying to get their kids to school look at their phones because they're late for work. That is not okay. But I love riding my bike and skateboarding. Please help me keep me and others' kids safe in my neighborhood. The roads are allowed. If these roads are allowed, I'm barely going to ride my bike because because I'm busy getting off the road because cars are coming through. And I know someone is going to get hurt by this car one day. But if the entrance only will help me and my safe.
My name is Melanie. My name is issue. The only thing I would ask you to think about, if you had a teenage driver, it's very scary. I was terrified when my daughter was driving 2 miles on a flat road with a school speed zone. So to have them exit onto Worthington with people leaving our neighborhood too, I just don't think that's a scenario we want to see. So I'd ask that you keep that in mind.
Thank you.
Hi, Sue Ziegler, 6677 Via Florenza. I live in Cala. I believe that an entrance exit directly across from Via Florenza creates a safety issue not only for the residents of Mirasol, but for the students and congregants of the school and church. Regardless of signage or suggestion, Mirasol very difficult to see the crest road. The increase in traffic, there's only going to be more accidents. So I agree with what an emergency is the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Ryan Goff at 6611 Via Florenza Drive. I live at our house with my wife Hillary, 2-year-old daughter, and a new baby boy that is on the way at the end of this month. So that is, it's going to be tiring, as you can probably imagine. I am opposed to the entrance and exit going over at the new church. I go with my daughter probably 2 times a day in the afternoon, and it is very cars speeding through going the actual speed limit that we were discussing earlier. Our count, I think that's pretty much obvious as far. High schoolers aren't the best drivers. I was one. You a lot more different now with the which unfortunately some of us are kind of guilty of doing as well too. That being said, I really don't think that it's a matter of when the accidents are want to build. That's great. We want to see the community as it's.
Thank you.
Good evening. Ashraf, and I at 633 Via Florida. My wife Kathy and I moved from Roseville to Galena years ago based on the support of family values and safe environment that Galena has a reputation for. As we know, Mirasol is a bedroom community of going to be 82 homes, where the demographics are comprised roughly evenly between empty nesters and retirees on one end and young families on the other. On any given day, and primarily on the weekends, the streets are full of life, with parents teaching their children how to ride bikes, neighbors chatting, dogs being walked, grandparents interacting with their grandchildren, and walkers, lots of walkers. These are the dynamics that make Mirasol and the connected development, Sheffield Park, represent a safe and family-oriented community. Those residents that live here are generally unanimously opposed to having a general use road abut directly across from the main entrance into our development, although we understand and agree with the usefulness of an emergency entrance exit as proposed by the fire marshal. We already contend with the construction workers speeding on our roads and are absolutely convinced that the church road will only compound the issue. I think that we're all certain that a road abutting ours will bring additional traffic, and that human nature will dictate that these folks will also speed through to make the decision to cut the corner at Worthington and Lewis Center a good value. What does this do for our community? Absolutely nothing positive, and in fact compromises the safety to our children, grandchildren, pets, and ourselves that we cherish so dearly. I recognize that the church and residents of Mirasol are diametrically different in their opinion regarding this road. The one thing that I do know is the objective of the church in providing a safe and friendly environment for its members is exactly what our community wants to provide to our residents: a safe environment that emphasizes family values, neighborly interaction, and participation in activities that promote the reputation of Galena as a great place to live. We're asking the church to allow Mirasol to continue as a model community and partner with us in keeping our community safe and from potentially dangerous, maintain the neighborhood we have worked so hard to establish and our other is in. If we did not believe that this road represents a potential negative impact to our community, we would not feel as passionate about the presence that we obviously do. And I think this reflects exactly what I'm saying. Honestly, I don't understand the basis for this discussion. It feels like we are considering trading the safety of our families for the convenience of building a nice-to-have road. In my opinion, I'm not sure that this is a valid or a fair decision that we should be having. I oppose, and I hope that the trustees also oppose this road.
Good evening. Thank you for this time. My name is Jeremy Bedard. My wife Hope and I reside at 6534 Via Florenza Drive in the Mirasol development. So we're some of the newest residents in the neighborhood, moving here just last June. So I'm here this evening, just like my neighbors, in support of the collective concern on safety within our neighborhood. Safety of our neighborhood should be paramount and must be the top priority before any final decision is cast by the Board of Trustees and or any zoning commission recommendations. My wife and I fully understand and support that our community is growing. We applaud the church for taking on this endeavor. However, with that growth, there has to be consideration of minimizing the impact to us, the residents of Mirasol and neighboring neighborhoods, such as Sheffield Park. We are the tax-paying residents of the township, and that should be taken into consideration as well. A key criteria for our move to Genoa Township, particularly into Mirasol, was based on living in a small community that would not be subject to high volumes of traffic once we are at 100% build out. I will digress for a moment and tell you that from observing that the current traffic activity within the subdivision related to construction vehicles that adults drive do not obey posted signs or allowable traffic speeds. If you guys think that a 16-year-old driver who is 1.5 times more likely to cause an accident and rushing to beat the morning bell, or parents who are rushing through the neighborhood and looking for alternate routes to drop off their kids, then the 2 curves and 25-mile-an-hour posted limit will not deter them. Regarding the proposed location, as written in 2021.04.22 complete development text with amendment, section 1.c, page 44, it states traffic turn right, left, or go straight. I am asking that the Genoa Church Academy Committee, McKnight Group, Delaware County Engineers Office, Genoa Township Board of Trustees, and Zoning Commission reconsider this position and strike straight out of the record. Instead, I'm requesting consideration for the following. At a minimum, as previously discussed, but I already have my bullet points being prepared, is that the exit from Via Florenza remains a right-only, left-only option. The exit out of the access road, which I oppose, other than use for emergency vehicles, would at minimum be a right turn or left turn only option with appropriate road marking. And while we all know engineer's office that I heard from earlier today, there needs to be a consideration for installation of traffic calming concrete medians, regardless of whether someone stated that they don't work because people run over signs. And this would eliminate, or at least alleviate, the level of concern of movement across Worthington Road into Via Florenza. And then I just want to, in closing, I want to remind everyone that the word safety is used 297 times within the 2021.04.22 complete plan text document. So I will appeal directly to you, our Board of Trustees, Mr. Gebhardt, Ms. Goodman, and Mrs. Vaughn. Assuming I did my math correctly, between the 3 of you, you collectively have 8 children and 13 grandchildren. If you all lived in Mirasol, wouldn't you expect the township to afford you the highest level of safety and to keep any and all adverse impacts de minimis to their daily lives? Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
David Engelson, 4083 Treeline Court. First thing I'd like to do is thank the Board of Trustees, Administrator Wise, and especially Director of Maintenance Bob Matthews. Our road, Treeline Court, was completely replaced last year for the first time since it was built in 1982. Thanks a lot. Express my sincere gratitude to Bob and his crew. They do a great job. For those of you who lived in other jurisdictions and came out here, the snow removal here in 86 and 87 when we moved in was fantastic. We were shocked. Our roads were actually cleared. So I've lived here, like I said, since 1986. I've seen a lot of changes in Genoa Township. We've gone from less than 3,000 people to probably over 30,000 right now. Seen a lot of changes on Treeline Court and Lewis Center. A lot of traffic that's increased greatly over the years. We've tried numerous measures to try and assist that traffic in entering State Route 3. We've never had any success with that. we've all been in favor of a traffic light to help solve that situation. It apparently hasn't been accomplished even with the school. If you'll recall, in 2008 or 9, the Freeman State Route 3 intersection did not have a traffic light. Jerry Cotter, who was a trustee then, spearheaded a movement to get that traffic light put in to help solve that problem. That was done primarily to protect the people leaving the Westerville public schools, that Westerville Middle School, and the other schools in that area. My reason for being here right now is a concern for all the children in the area that we're discussing, all the children. That includes the 400 plus children that attend Genoa Christian Academy. And this new route would alleviate a substantial amount of traffic that now is dumped onto Lewis Center, onto Route 3 most of the time, especially during rush hour, 8 to 9, Monday through Friday. The afternoon is at somewhere around 3 to 4. But I'm in favor of that new route being put in for that primary purpose, protecting the 400 plus children, alleviating the traffic flow congestion on Lewis Center. I'm also in favor, and I was shocked to hear tonight about the 20-mile-an-hour school zones. Those should be put in both areas. If you're going to put that road into Worthington, you need a 20-mile-an-hour flashing school zone with the police department monitoring it frequently. The same as Lewis Center, and it's never been put in on Lewis Center since the inception of the school. But apparently Delaware County says no. And then the other thing is the traffic light. You still need a traffic light on Route 3 and Lewis Center Road. And I'm in favor of it. And by the way, it may cost me part of my backyard, but I'm still in favor of it. And that's going to, so that could help solve the situation. But to reiterate, I'm in favor of the new road to protect, as these people have so eloquently put forth, protect children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. My name is Courtney Braswell, and I live at 6706 Via Florenza Drive with my family, which includes 3 children, causing a ruckus back there. They are 7, 4, and 2 years old. I'm here to voice my opposition, not for the school, but for the access road proposed directly across from Via Florenza. As many of my neighbors have mentioned, my main concern is for the safety of our neighborhood. While I was doing some quick research on the correlation between accidents and cut-through driving, I came across an article from the Community and Environmental Defense Services with quite a bit of helpful information. Most notably, of all the roads, residential neighborhood streets have the highest accident rate. And these accidents involve a substantially higher percentage of pedestrians and cyclists. As main roads become more congested, cut-through traffic obviously increases, which then makes the neighborhood more dangerous. Cut-through traffic operates at a higher speed, which leads to an increase in accidents and severity of injury. A few stats. A pedestrian is nearly twice as likely to die if struck by a car traveling at 30 miles per hour compared to 20 miles per hour. As speed increases, driver field of vision decreases, narrows, making it more likely that pedestrians will not be seen until it is too late to avoid. And a car traveling at 30 miles per hour requires twice the distance to fully stop compared to 20 miles per hour. I say all of this to support my deep concerns I have with the added traffic that will undoubtedly cut through our residential community with the implementation of a road directly connecting our neighborhood to the church and school property. Now, in full transparency, my first choice would be have no access road put on Worthington. This would eliminate all traffic into our neighborhood, as well as eliminating the increase in accidents on Worthington Road. That said, I do want there to be compromise on both sides. Therefore, I would like you to support a road that is gated and only accessible by emergency use vehicles. This would meet the needs of the church school to have the added access at fire marshal's request, while also meeting the needs of our neighborhood and community safety. Furthermore, if it is determined a publicly accessed road will be granted, it is only logical to limit the access to right in, right out. This will eliminate the traffic from coming straight across into our neighborhood, while also eliminating some danger of crossing multiple lanes of busy, speedy Burlington Road traffic. In conclusion, I will leave you with a story. As a book I recently read indicates, stories often have more impact than data. The setting of this story is a quiet, idyllic neighborhood similar to Marisol, where people have moved to get away from the busy city congestion and feel comfortable in a safe neighborhood where kids can play, people can walk and bike without concern for busy traffic or crime. On this beautiful, uncharacteristically warm March day, a newly licensed driver had her windows down, blaring music with her friend in the passenger seat. They were having so much fun, they missed the stop yellow bus, dropping off kids at school, after school, and this one act changed so many lives forever. Sorry. The driver hit and instantly killed my best friend. And while this is a horrible story, and not one I tell often, but given the reason we are all joined here tonight, I find it very relevant. There is an opportunity to prevent some tragic version of this story happening to some other family, some other friend, and I urge you to keep this top of mind when you come to your decision. I know your job is not easy. Thank you for listening, and thank you for keeping the safety of our tax-paying community members your top priority.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mike Brazel. I reside at 6706 Via Florenza Drive with my wife and 3 children. Similar to my wife, I'd like to start by saying thank you for your service and your contributions to making our community better and safer. Up front, I want to be clear that I'm not opposed to the growth and expansion of the church or the school. My opposition is with the location, the design of the proposed publicly accessible drive, and the impacts to our adjoining neighborhood. In a utopian viewpoint, my recommendation would be to reject the need for any road at all, as it seems unnecessary per code. But in addition to that view lacking compromise, I can't knowingly argue safety on one side of Worthington and not the other. As such, if the fire marshal is recommending an additional means of access for safety, then I support. But as my wife articulated, that access should be blocked from public use with restricted access solely for emergency use vehicles. If this body feels additional compromise is needed in the form of a public access from Worthington Road, then access should be limited to right in, right out only, with a concrete barrier that would physically prevent traffic from going across or left onto Worthington. While it has been noted tonight that the county engineer does not generally support pork chop features, they are certainly not foreign to our community, and if this body believes it to be a viable solution, I believe with your support and backing, it could be a reasonable compromise to most here. One final anecdote to the current proposal is that my belief is that any notion that simply adding signage, painting lines on a roadway, or verbally asking students, teachers, or parishioners to not cut through a neighborhood seems a bit naive and a distraction from more absolute solutions that are available. For me personally, this issue is best summarized with a few questions. Question number 1 is what's next? In a few short years, the church has grown significantly in footprint to constructing an expanded worship center and proposing tens and thousands of added square foot for a middle and high school. With more buildable land and no active master plans available, it would seem that any traffic study or impact analysis could not possibly contemplate such an unknown future. Question number 2 is whose voice carries? The voices of the voting Genoa residents and the tax-paying members of this community, or those of the church and parishioners seeking additional convenience for members who live in communities south of here? And most importantly, question 3, what is this issue really about? Convenience or safety? The decision should start and stop with safety. The safety of our community, the safety of our kids who are waiting for buses or riding their bikes, and the safety of the 16-year-old high school student driver trying to take a left turn across 45-mile-an-hour traffic onto Worthington. In summary, I say build the school, We support your expansion. We support your reach in the community. Continue preaching the message of God. But while Jesus Take the Wheel is a catchy tune, I would urge this body to vote and sing the song of safety. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Leela Jernovoy. I'm a resident of 6785 Via Florenza Drive, and I am in the process of learning how to drive right now. I have a job and I go to a public school, and as many new drivers, I try to avoid difficult roads or intersections to avoid getting into an accident. The issue here is that I have no other road leading up to my driveway. There is no other road that my driveway lays on, and if the intersection is built, I won't be able to avoid an accident because I will have no choice but to go through that intersection, which directly puts me in danger. Church members and students of the school, however, do have the choice of going on that road, and there are other ways to get to the church, but there is no other way to get to my house. So why should I, a resident, be denied my right and not be given a choice, while church attendees will have an intersection built for their convenience? My responsibility as a new driver is to learn how to safely get from one place to another and to do everything in my power to avoid a traffic collision. How am I, as an inexperienced teenage driver, supposed to avoid a difficult intersection when I have no other way to go? I'm a teenager, I'm a new driver, I'm a resident of this road, and I'm scared of this intersection. So I'm here to ask why is the convenience of church attendees prioritized over my rights as a new driver, as a teenager, and as a resident of Via Florenza Drive?
Good evening. Hi, my name is Sherry Curley, and my husband Frank and I reside at 6862 Via Florenza Drive. We live on the southeast corner of Via Florenza and Worthington Road. We are greatly impacted, as is Ann. We're directly across the street from the expansion of the church. We are opposed to any public access to the church's property from Worthington Road. We believe safety should be the primary consideration. Worthington Road should be limited to emergency access only. It is much safer to require the patrons of the Baptist Church to enter and exit via Lewis Center Road. There are stop signs and a future proposed roundabout, which is safer than attempting a turn on Worthington Road, which has a blind hill, or as Joe describes it, a crest. It is very difficult to get in and out of it. We're in and out daily. It is a definite blind hill. Myself and the residents of Mirasol are very disappointed the church has not reached out to us. I reached out to Pastor Stoll, who I was told was in charge of the expansion, at the end of March, and has never received a reply. My husband and I don't feel this multi-million-dollar corporation is negotiating in good faith or has any respect for the safety of the tax-paying neighbors. The church has taken advantage of the fire marshal's letter to provide convenience versus safety for the church patrons. The traffic survey was paid for by the developer for the church and is biased and inaccurate. The information from the church is misleading, citing increases per year versus a grand total, which is a significant amount of traffic. We didn't see any environmental impact studies. Other concerns we have are green space, light pollution, landscaping, upkeep. We drove by the other day, the yard was about 2 foot tall. An earth berm to stay in continuity with the neighborhood of Mirasol, so we don't see the headlamps, is what brought up before. They're wondering if they would reconsider a traffic light at Route 3 should traffic become a problem, more like when it'll become a problem for them. Staggered event time should also be explored. Announcements to the congregation not to speed is somewhat naive. We all have kind of spoken our opinion on that. We also live across the street. The police spend a significant amount of time on Worthington Road. They are issuing citations daily. That's a very, very busy road. We feel no public access should be allowed at Worthington Road for the safety of the residents of Mirasol and the church patrons. Allowing any other access other than emergency only, we feel, is negligent. Not a matter of when, but when there will be an accident, but not if, but when. We're asking you to please vote no, and thank you very much for your consideration. Good evening.
Hi, my name is Vladimir Chernovoy. I live at 6785 Via Florence Drive. First of all, I want to say that I was one of the very first residents. We moved from Europe about 6 years ago. At that time, we were probably one of the first 5 or 6 houses on the street. At that time, trust me, it looked different than it does now. And before we moved in, we did our research. We pulled out the plans, we pulled out all the public records. I have friends that all that. Anyway, we did our research. So nowhere we saw that there will be a busy intersection there. And the reason we moved on that street is because I wanted to raise my family quietly and peacefully. And my reasoning was the same as for many, many neighbors who came here and spoke. And by the way, I could not be more proud of all the comments. Really, really impressed with you guys. It's seriously, I don't have a fancy speech prepared, but I'm very impressed with my neighborhood. Now it's a big street. The street is going to grow. I think, and Lila, who spoke to my daughter, she's learning how to drive. So I'm terrified. I'm terrified. It's already stressful for a parent when your child gets on the road on their own. And I teach her, I try to lead by example. I don't do crazy stuff on the road because you have to practice what you preach, right? So I drive carefully. I try to teach her how to drive carefully. This thing is a disaster. It's an accident waiting to happen, and it's preventable. And I think we should vote with our conscience. And when an accident will happen, then you're going to remember this meeting, and you're going to think about your vote, because it will be on your conscience, really. And what we're making, decisions that we're making, they're long term. It's not easily reversible. It's not like I buy new shoes or buy a new sweatshirt. This is going to stay with us. And also, what kind of message are you sending to the residents of this community and to everybody who wants to live in this neighborhood? It's very important. And for the church, I really, really very disappointed that you did not choose to communicate with the community. I'm not against the development. I'm a business owner. I want to grow my company. I want to thrive. I want to stay here, pay the taxes, and I support everything. I voted for new police department. I vote for libraries. I vote for you guys. So I want to stay in this community, but we need to find a way how we can live in peace. And we need to make decisions that are good for everybody. Because people are going to try to live here. I mean, people who are trying to move in here, the word spreads around, let's put it this way. And what kind of message are we sending if we're saying that convenience is more important than safety? And right now I'm scared. I'm really, really scared. And I always tell my daughter, if you approach a busy intersection and if you are in a hurry, waste some time, but take a safer route. And now we're putting extremely dangerous intersection right in my backyard. And what is she supposed to do? So I'm urging you to vote with your conscience. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Annette McMurray, 3690 Worthington Road. In 2007, my husband and I purchased our home on Worthington Road. We used to joke that the cars going by sounded like the ocean waves. Not anymore. Traffic, like Ann said earlier, Worthington Road is the new 3C. It is nonstop traffic, the intersection at Lewis Center and Worthington Road, probably an accident at least once a week. Having said that, I cannot imagine having an entryway exit onto Worthington Road where the church is asking for it to go. Not only does it impact the families that live in Marisol, it also impacts those of us that live on Worthington Road. Safety is a huge concern on that road. Trying to cross the street to get my mail is like playing, I don't know, dodgeball. It's not safe. So I can't imagine putting additional traffic onto that road. Additionally, I want to echo what many, many people have said here tonight, is that safety needs to be our number one concern. We all moved here because we loved our community. We wanted to be a part of this community. I mean, we've had members that have come all the way from Europe to live here, right? I mean, the reputation prevails, obviously internationally. So having said that, please, please listen to the voices of your community members. This is an important decision that impacts a lot of people. And I would encourage the church, if you guys, it doesn't sound like you've gone out and talked to the people in the community, take the time. It's the right thing to do from a fellow Christian. Do it. Talk to them. That's important. Hear what they have to say. Thank you.
My name is Dwight Dunlap. I live at 6851 Via Florenza. I did my own traffic study because I was concerned about the increased traffic on Worthington Road. We've been here for 2 years and it's been very noticeable. So I went out this morning, and between the hours of 7:15 and 8:15, I counted the cars that were traversing both north and south on Worthington Road. I counted almost 400 cars in that 1 hour, close to 400. Now, if you look forward and at the growth of the community and the increased traffic caused the new school and so forth, you could easily extrapolate up to, 1,000 cars. I'm sure all of you will agree with me that that would be very dangerous.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nadia Jacksimbaeva, 6785 Via Florenza. I'm from the European contingent, so you heard my daughter and you heard my husband. I love Genoa Township. We moved here on purpose. We actually researched Boston, Silicon Valley, and we came back to Ohio because we went to school in Cleveland, Case Western Reserve. So this was a very conscious choice. We own a business here. Our business is registered in Galena. Our neighborhood in Via Florenza are teachers and business owners and doctors and volunteers who retired. We contribute to this community. I was calculating our taxes, so your website says that it's about $12.5 per 1,000 assessed. For our house, that would be $2,662 a year. We lived here for 5 years. That's $30,312 for just our house. There are 41 houses on our street right now. It will be 80. We contribute to the streets. We contribute to the parks. We contribute to the quality of air. Our house, we planted 25 trees. I went around the neighborhood counting the trees. We average about 15 trees per house that each house on our street planted with our own money. For our house, in terms of trees, that's $10,000 investment. If you calculate how much our entire neighborhood just on trees invested from our own pocket, that would be 615 trees, equivalent to $246,000. We are contributing not just with our presence, but with our service. So when we show up, I was on the last 2 zoning commissions. We asked to be heard. And at the last zoning commission, you can look it up, it's on record, the pastor said, I have no interest meeting with the residents. What am I gonna learn from them? That's actually a quote. I heard from the pastor saying, well, you can look for the record then. I have no interest, what am I gonna learn from them? That's what we heard. We are contributing. I understand the church. I love the church. Great. We are Christians in our family. We have Catholics and Orthodox in our family. Great. But how can one voice of one community be so neglected? We ask for compromise. 0 compromise has been given. We were tasked. The commission told us, come back with solutions. The church did not come back with solutions. We were brainstorming 2 meetings in a row coming up with solutions. What we are asking for is to find a way for our contribution to be as valued, for our rights and our safety to be waited for or protected as much as just once. Because again, listen to the records of the last meetings. What was said? We need to give the right to the visitors from Polaris to turn. That's an actual quote. Visitors from Polaris, for some reason, have more rights than us while we are contributing to the community. So we ask you to protect our elderly. We ask you to protect our pets. We want this community to grow. We want it to be full of trees and beautiful air and no light pollution and a lot of great experiences, including learning experiences, including different choices. But it cannot be at the expense of our safety and of our needs. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello. My name is Sarah Gillum, and I live in Sheffield Park. I am a neighbor to a lot of you. I know that we benefit from the connecting of the two neighborhoods. I know that I see a lot of you walking on our walking path and enjoy the experience of both neighborhoods together. And I count it a privilege that when there was the connecting of Sheffield and Mirasol, that it was a blending of wonderful friendship and bigger community with like-minded people that appreciated a community that cares about safety and we moved in, my husband and I and our 4 kids moved in 2010. And we have 4 children that have and currently do attend Genoa. I appreciate and am encouraged by the support that I have heard for the school and what it has done to the hearts and minds of the next generation and our growing community. I think that we can all agree that Worthington Road is increasingly busy, and there needs to be a solution there. There have been many that have been stated tonight. I certainly hear your concerns about safety and protection for families, and I am all for that, as I have a family of 6 myself. I have the same with the cutting through of our neighborhood as well, from Africa on that big thoroughfare called Sheffield Park that we go right over to Worthington Road. I appreciate the creative ideas brought forward today. The pork chop exit entrance to minimize cut-through traffic. If I lived in Via Florenza, I wouldn't want to have the cut-through traffic either. That is a possibility, the cut-through traffic. And I'm very hopeful this upcoming completion of the roundabout in 2023 will provide more protection and safety for the offloading of, well, to eliminate accidents that are constantly happening, as has been mentioned. I truly believe there can be a coming together of minds here for this proposal and safety for neighbors and community. Thank you.
Thank
We didn't get her address. Sarah, before you leave, could you give us your address, please?
Sorry. 6410 Fox Hollow Drive.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Right, Chad, 58 Via Florenza Drive. My wife Carrie lives with me as well. You know, I should have probably went first in all of this because I'm just going to say ditto to everything my great neighbors have said. You know, they've covered every base, and you know, I reinforce in everything that they've said. Certainly oppose the entrance at the end of Via Florenza Drive. One thing I would ask you to consider is not just to consider this as a point-in-time event. Right? We were one of the first houses in Mirasol, if not maybe the first family to move in. And when we did, we went out in the middle of the street. There was no traffic, right? We taught our children to ride bikes right on that street. And as the neighborhood grew, you know, so did the traffic. And of course, we went back Today where it stands, I'm afraid to put a basketball hoop on my driveway for fear it runs out into the street, right? Because a car can come by pretty quickly, speeding. That doesn't end well. What I would ask you to consider is that the neighborhood is going to continue to grow, and the church is going to continue to grow. It's successful, and my fear is this is a phase 2 out of a phase 4 expansion, right? And so that this can continue to grow further, and as it does, perhaps the entrance that is there now is going to be used differently in 5 to 10 years than it's being proposed it's being used today. And so for that reason, thinking growth-minded, I would ask you to consider if it's not a requirement, then why do it? So, thank you.
Hello, Carrie Hoover, 6658 Via Florenza Drive. And I also want to speak out in opposition to having an entrance directly across from our neighborhood. We considered many locations before we chose Mirasol, both neighborhoods and open land, and ultimately decided on Mirasol because we had a place to raise our family where our kids could ride their bikes, we could walk our dogs, we could, in general, enjoy time outside and feel safe doing so. We were the first family to build in Mirasol. Like my husband said, when we first moved in, it was a short street with just a dead end and a mound of dirt, and our kids would play outside in the street. We were well aware that that would be short-lived and that there was plans to expand the neighborhood and take it on to Lewis Center. But what we did not expect was the amount of cut-through traffic that would go through and the speed at which people would travel down our road. Our neighbors have made many great points, very well researched and well thought out, a lot of suggestions for compromise, and I hope that you'll consider some of the options that have been put forth. And I don't understand why we're even talking about putting an entrance across from our neighborhood when it doesn't sound like there's one required, and a lot of other options have been presented, and I hope you will consider what all the residents here have said as voting members of the community and taxpayers. Thank you.
Who else? That's it? Okay, going once, going twice. Hey, get over here. That's been a short one. Boy. All right, at this time, with seeing that there are no other public comments, we will close public comment period. And next on the agenda will be the applicant's response.
One of the pastors at the church, and I'll let him do technical stuff because I don't understand that. But when we did build the church back in 1990, it was a farm field. There was, I think, 50 people there. There wasn't neighborhoods that are going in, and we stand for the same thing we did some 30 years ago. Is we want to be good neighbors. And so everything that was said tonight, first of all, if I could afford to live in that neighborhood, I would probably move there. I love the fact that you have empty nesters and young families that are hanging out, getting together. You have international. It's a reflection of what neighborhoods should look like and probably what looked like before my generation. So I applaud you guys. Thank you so much. Our goal is the same thing as their goal. We want zero traffic going through their neighborhood. It's not that we want 99% to go somewhere else. We want 0% of our traffic to go through their neighborhood. And I'll let Philip speak to some of the Delaware County stuff that they said that people wouldn't. When it takes twice as long to go through their neighborhood, people are not going to cut through their neighborhood. Our goal, I looked online for an HOA, and I'm not sure if they have an HOA to talk to, but I did look for that. Our goal is the same thing as their goal. We want to keep their children safe. We want them to be able to play basketball on their streets. We want them to go for bike rides. We want them to be the community they are. And so that's what we're asking. Interestingly enough, when the public is asked to do something, generally the public won't abide as well as a private entity. And so we have direct access with our church members, direct access with our school members. We tell them where to park on Sundays, and that's where they park. We tell them how the traffic pattern should go Monday through Friday, what they do. And that would be our goal, to continue that, to educate our people that for no reason would you cut through and go straight on Worthington Road. It's not a question of is it faster, is it make sense. For no reason will you cut across that road. And our people have been faithful. I believe.
Philip Tipton again with the McKnight Group. Just want to address a few things that were mentioned. One was the concern about a master plan and what might happen in the future. And we mentioned this at the zoning level, but I just want to reiterate that no master plan beyond what has been presented exists. The only thing that has even been discussed with the church at all are additional athletic fields. And there was an exhibit in the traffic study that showed an additional softball and baseball diamond, in addition to the one soccer field that's already been proposed. So no other master plan exists. There's no secret drawing. There are no discussions of anything beyond what we've talked about here. I just wanted to make sure that was totally clear. I wanted to address one of the comments early on. One of the gentlemen here talked about current traffic that is cutting through the Mirasol neighborhood, and I believe I got this right, that most of it, at least anecdotally, is coming from Lewis Center, not the other way around, not from Worthington to Lewis Center, but the opposite direction. And so perhaps, you know, the percentage of people, we're not arguing that there aren't people coming through the neighborhood, but which direction they're going, it sounds like, is not as much from Worthington Road. Again, this roundabout is going to be completed in 2023, and we really do believe that that is going to greatly reduce the number of people that would be incentivized to cut through, tempted to cut through, because the option to get around the roundabout will be much faster. There should not be any traffic backing up on Worthington Road at that point. Scott mentioned it, but again, we believe it's not naive to say that the church members and the families in the school will be dependably well behaved when they're instructed not to go straight out of the Worthington Road entrance. And so we think that's a legitimate comment. Just want to again mention the fire department requirements. You know, several people again are hoping, arguing that perhaps there should not be any driveway at all, or that it should be limited access only with a gate. Again, the fire department has required the drive, so that's very, very clear. Quoting from the technical review tonight, this is from the fire chief. Both the fire chief and fire marshal have expressed to staff that they would recommend said road not be restricted to emergency vehicles only, but rather open to full public access as well, noting that additional means of egress would help traffic get off the site in case of an emergency. All traffic exiting the site onto Lewis Center Road during such a scenario could hinder the ability of emergency services, be it Genoa Township or another entity, to quickly access the property regardless of where said access point is located. So we're not trying to be obtuse to the neighbors' concerns about safety, but we are also concerned about the safety of the church and the safety of the students in the school. And if there's a fire, and you know, how is their safety guaranteed as well? Just want to again also mention the zoning requirement in section 1406.07.b, which is that a planned community facility on a site exceeding 20 acres have direct access to an arterial street. This site currently only has 2 access points onto a collector street, and this is right out of the zoning code that this would be required. And so, you know, we definitely feel that it is justified. And again, we've enumerated different times, you know, what would be willing to be done by the church. We feel that it really would greatly limit, perhaps even completely limit the number of people that would go straight through. And the last point I want to make is again that we hear the concerns for safety. We agree with them, but limiting people coming out on Worthington Road is just as harsh toward the Lewis Center residents who are also tax-paying citizens. Forcing the additional traffic onto Lewis Center would just as likely perhaps injure their grandchildren, their children, and so it is you know, completely one-sided to want to push traffic all one direction and not the other direction. And so for that reason, we feel like the drive is again necessary. It is required by the fire department. The zoning code even requires it. And again, the church has spelled out what they are willing to do to help make it safe.
Anyone else on your team? Any other comments? I guess not. Okay. This time, we will go into board discussion. Discuss away. Let me ask one question on whether it's the applicant or Joe or whomever. Obviously, the county engineer's office plays a big role in this. So there had been several proposals, several that were discussed tonight. The pork chop, a T, I don't know if it's a double pork chop or whatever, to where you have to go left, you have to go right, left to right, but you can't go straight ahead. Were there any recommendations, physical barrier type recommendations that were presented, whether it's through the zoning commission process or tonight, that the county engineer said, we could probably make that work? That's very unlikely. Thank you.
None that I can recall off the top of my head, but in my conversation with them on Friday, I only mentioned the right in, right out, and then the scenario where there was full access in and right out. Obviously, the only plan they formally reviewed is the one that was presented to them, so I don't know what other options the church may have discussed.
Engineer perhaps could answer that better, but there are none that I'm aware of that have been discussed.
Should be the longer button. Yep, there you go.
Other than discussions in the meetings, there wasn't a formal presentation of a right in, right out. Other than, as Joe had some brief discussions, but it was more focused on location and all access.
Okay. So the discussion regarding full access, left, right, out, and in, was there at any time any recommendation or suggestion by the county, having the county knowing the concerns being expressed and concerns being by the church, of any type of physical barrier that could be installed that would address, that would allow for left, right, onto Worthington Road, but not allow for direct cross traffic onto Via Florence?
So we can't put a total barrier on Worthington Road without taking away the ability for left turn lanes into Via Florenza. So that's one thing. One thing was, is there a way to shift lanes and do a whole side by side, but then you're still crossing traffic at some point. So the full barrier kind of was evaluated from a high level standpoint, but never into very much detail, because we would essentially cut off their access into their site, and we didn't want to do that as well.
Okay. I want to address the issue of the Route 3 and Lewis Center. That's come up several times, and it has been a concern for at least 10 to 12 years, if not longer. We have made efforts to work with the state of Ohio in an effort to get a light there. Unfortunately, and this is how illogic some of these issues are, it took 3 deaths at Plum Road before we were able to get a light there. I mean, you know, the Department of Highway, ODOT didn't say, well, we have 3 deaths. I mean, but that's what actually happened because of what was going on Plum. So I think everyone would admit, yes, we need a light there. It's just getting the entities who have the authority to put the light there, put the light there. And we're continuing to get that done. One of the reasons why I think we have a little bit more, or may have a little bit more leverage in the future is because of the school going in. That was why it happened at Freeman, as David indicated, was because we had the schools in that area. There were walking paths, kids were walking to school. So those are the type of factors we have to look at. So, I just wanted to reiterate that, the boards of trustees over the last 12 to 15 years have been concerned about that and have been, and we will continue to look at getting a light at Route 3 and Lewis Center Road. So just want to make a kind of more of a statement, I guess, on that issue. Mr. Serio brought up the issue of the why. That was a similar concept that I brought up to Joe. He brought it up to Mike Love with county engineer, and again, we have some opportunity, especially to the north, to maybe make another entrance or exit there. Again, it comes down to the site distance, and I don't, I really can't get into a debate.
I talked to him. He said to me that if the church came to us and proposed why we would consider it, he didn't say no, like he's done a lot of the other things, which came without any support.
Yeah.
He said we would consider it.
Well, we have been told by the county engineer's office that the reason the road, the driveway can't be moved to the north is because of the proximity to Lewis Center and Worthington Road and the site distance. So, I don't know, I'm not saying, that's not what he said to you, but I know what he's told us. So I think that is an issue that,
No,
is
I'm not
still out
familiar
there.
with the particular Olentangy
Yeah, I'm not
example,
either.
so I don't know if what I described to Mike matches the example that
Right.
was presented tonight. I just want to make that clear.
Okay, so, Connie, Renee, I'll let you go ahead and jump in here for a while.
First of all, there were 4 residents who emailed the trustees and wanted their statements read. In light of time, and I've read them, a lot of it is redundant, but I will just say that Ron and Barbara Murdoch, 6829 via Florenza Drive, are in opposition. Also, Norma Pfeiffer, 6717 via Florenza Drive, is opposed. Also, Don and Karen Lamont, there's no address given. And I think that's it. I think there's another one, but it's not signed, so.
And those will be incorporated into the official
Yes,
minutes, so.
yes. Well, I have many, so I don't know where to start. I had a question about the master plan. That has been addressed. The scope of the study. The study included the study included Worthington Road, but did the study assess traffic or conditions on Lewis Center at all when you completed the study for this project?
You can take your mask off. Give your name, please.
Todd Stanhope, with Smart Services, 1900 Crown Park Court, Columbus, Ohio. And my understanding when we scoped the study that the reason that a study was required is because of the proposed access point. So as such, we were required to analyze turn lanes at the new access point and the intersection of Lewis Center and Worthington Road with the roundabout condition. Now, we showed in the study the access points at Lewis Center because we used the existing traffic to project up the expansion traffic. So that's why it's shown in there.
Okay, so you didn't consider the access point truly only being an access and just studying what the impact of adding this building to your structure on Lewis Center Road?
That's correct. That was the requirement of the county engineer. It's possible they would not have required a study if new access wasn't proposed, but obviously we were presenting the site plan that we were evaluating.
When was the last time there was a traffic study done on Lewis Center Road for the church? Does anyone know?
one done for the roundabout, I would assume, by the county. 2012 is probably as close as we're
So the safety studies for Lewis Center and State Route 3, which are what are going to warrant the turn lanes at State Route 3 on Lewis Center, and as Mr. Gebhardt stated, I don't know, there was some stipulation that ODOT said no stoplight as part of that, but the turn lanes are happening. And then the roundabout, that'll happen, they were in the similar time frame, 2012-13. And I don't believe a traffic study was done in 2014 either was warranted when that small addition to the church was put on, because no additional access points were done.
So there's been no traffic study on Lewis Center Road since 2012 or 2013, and what has been added to the church in that amount of time since 2012?
So, there was a small addition to the school in 2004, it was approved in 14, added in 15, I think, and then the 2019 addition to the worship center was added in this last 6-year time frame.
I too was going to ask if you have reached out to the residents. I hear that Pastor Scott has made an attempt. So I'm sorry to hear that the residents weren't contacted.
I looked out to for an HOA through the neighborhood, and I didn't find it online. But as I said in the last meeting, we're on the same page. We're not going to find anything new from them. I think we're on the same page. No traffic is what they want, and no traffic is what we want. So from my perspective, we're on the same page. It's just how we get through that is a little different. So as far as what we both want the same thing.
I think it would have gone a long way for you to reach out to them. Just from my experience, I reached out to the residents. I met with over 30 of them on Saturday. I thank you for your time. So there were. I just think it's the right thing to do. I did reach out to the county engineer's office today, and I did ask about a school entrance, signs, speed limit. They did talk about the Ohio Revised Code, and it does, they say that they have tabs on the public schools a little more often because it's such a large entity, but the private schools, it's more, the schools would have to come to them, or it would have to be an issue. So I don't know where this is going to stand. I think it would depend on the numbers. I also found it interesting that I did listen to the previous zoning commission meetings after the fact. It was clear to me that the zoning commission wasn't in favor of your proposal, but the church asked for a vote. I just wonder why you pushed it through.
I think I referenced it on there as well, that there was no problem with the school, and I'm not sure that the zoning had a problem with the road. But when you have 40-some people show up, you're going to listen to them. And so they just wanted us to come to a better conclusion. And it's not that we're trying to conclude what percentage of the people should go through their neighborhood. We're on the same page. There's nothing different that we're going to say here, that I'm proposing that 20% go through their neighborhood and they're proposing only so there's no discussion on that. We're on the same page, and I think that's really what they struggled with is, hey, can you find a better solution? They asked about the right in, right out, and that doesn't work for us. That doesn't work for our community of, we are a community here. We do regionally bring people in, but I wish I'd had the number of homes, but 300-400 homes here in Genoa Township that call us their church and their schools. So, I mean, it is a wide, expansive area, and we don't want to limit anybody, especially in Genoa Township, and tell them they can't turn left to go to their house, or, they can't turn left to come in this way. So, from my opinion and what I believe the zoning township was, we're on the same page here. no traffic, keep their kids safe, no traffic through their neighborhood.
So to your point, you're not going to limit your parishioners to turn left or right onto Worthington Road, but you're going to tell them that they can't go straight.
Parishioners from the church, from the school, regularly update, especially at the beginning of the year. Hey guys, thanks for being here this year. Here's your general information, which will remind us to approach the church at the same time. Guys, thank you so much for what you're doing. Just want to remind you, don't turn left or right, which the county has told us people won't go straight anyway.
If I could jump
Yeah,
in.
go ahead.
I think it's a related question, Scott, or comment. When you submitted the original plan to the zoning commission and during the zoning commission hearings, was there a commitment in writing? I mean, did you have it as part of the plan to at least do the arrows and the signage and those types of issues?
Yeah, so part of
because from what I understand, that was not in the original plan, but it is in the revised plan that you brought to us. So there were some concerns on the part of the zoning commission, and Ms. Trustee Goodman has been on the zoning commission. They're somewhat reluctant to go on, all due respect, good faith. We're going to do X, Y, Z. They want to see it on paper.
Oh, I was giving away the farm until I was told, like, you can't put signs limiting. So we want to put a sign on our property saying you can't go straight, but I was informed that we can't put that on there because it's legally allowed, so you can't put a sign. But we talked about the arrows of putting them down there. We want to do everything in our best interest as a church not to send people straight. And so I was going to put up signs until they're like, well, legally you can't put up signs telling them they can't do something they're allowed to do.
May I piggyback on this?
Yes, go ahead.
Because I think this is the biggest thing we're going to discuss
For
tonight.
sure.
I've got a couple other things, but would there be a commitment from the church to assist in that process by putting, I don't know what to call them, perhaps a traffic guard out there at the times the school is entering, at the time they're dismissing? Somebody that says, no, you're not going to go straight, you have to pick right or left. Someone from your operation that would help guide people, at least in the start of the school season when people are kind of learning the ropes a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. So, yeah, if you're asking us at the beginning of every school year if we would do that to put someone out there, of course they'll be educated. People that drive and park on campus, they have to get their parking permit, they have to have the permission slip signed by them and their parents, and along with that we can educate them. Hey, we know that you're a young driver, we want to keep you safe, and part of it is understanding you can't go straight on that road. So that could be something our superintendent puts in that packet as well.
I don't think it's the best solution by any means, but it's a step further than we've gotten anywhere else. It's somebody that is there reminding these folks, whether they be students, their parents, grandparents, whatever the case. And I think that's one of the things that the grandparents, from my standpoint, somebody mentioned how many people we collectively have, children and grandchildren. I take the prize on grandkids. I've got 9. But I can tell you that I pick up kids from school periodically, and it's a challenge for me because I don't know the ropes. They tell me, here's the card, go here, pick them up. And I'm terrified I'm going to turn the wrong way and harm some child. So I think that's a very valid point, but I think that these are the people we need to be most concerned about, the visiting people.
And Mr. Tipton was telling me before the meeting, we can't put signs on like closer to the road, but we can have like the sandwich signs closer on our property, left, right only. And that could be something that we keep out there for sure.
Thank you.
Assuming it's legal.
Well, it's on your property though, so.
Something on the easement, yeah.
Can't be
I
in
don't
the right
understand.
of way of the Worthington Road.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry to
Yeah, we didn't
interrupt.
mean to
No, you're fine. During the church, again, during the zoning meeting, during this presentation, I hear a lot of, I think, I believe. Those aren't facts. So as much as you think or you believe people want cut through or it's going to be safe, I can't take that as fact. And so I think safety still is an issue. I did call again the county engineer's office. I did ask them about the pork chop configuration. My kids attends Orange High School. They do have a pork chop concrete barrier at the entrance on Orange Road. I was told by the county engineer's office they don't allow it on two-lane roads. Well, guess what? Orange Road is a two-lane road, and they have a pork chop configuration. I asked them why that was approved, and they wouldn't approve it for your church. There was no answer. They don't know. Also, I did a little other homework. Berkshire Middle School, which my youngest attends, has 1,042 students and 139 staff members. They also have one of Olentangy's 2 transportation departments behind the school. It has 1 entrance. In your prediction in 2032, you predict that 971 students will attend your middle school and K through 12. You'll have 86 staff members. Berkshire currently has more students and more staff, plus 80 buses that go in and out of their building, their driveway, daily. So what I'm saying is in 2032, you won't need this extra entrance. It's a nice to have. It's not a must have. Also, Orange Middle School has 1,100 students currently and 145 staff members. They currently only have a roundabout in front of their building, 1 entrance. So you can do this. You can do this for 10 years without an extra entrance. It's a nice to have. I think it's a safety issue.
I have a few things. First off, I am saddened that the church did not reach out to the residents. And I understand that you looked for an HOA. Unfortunately, when these are newer subdivisions, until they reach a critical number, the HOA is not turned over to the residents. It's the builder that holds the HOA. And if I'm not mistaken, there is still a model home there that, you could have gone to and said, here's the plan, how do I reach your residents? There's door-to-door. I realize that's a bad idea in COVID. Not everybody wants to talk to you at the door or anywhere else. So, but I think there were options that you could have done. It would have gone a long way to have talked to the residents before we got to this point. Putting them early in the plan is always better than putting them at the tail end. And that's across the board, any subdivision that goes in anywhere. The church itself is aggressively growing, and it has been for a while. I'm not opposed to the growth. I think that's good. But it's challenging for people to see where it's going without a master plan. And I know we can't force you to have a master plan. For your best interest, it might be a good idea to think forward a little bit as to what are you going to do. A little bit ago, you talked about softball and baseball fields. That master plan would say, where are these potentially going to go? What else is going to go in here? And I know I shouldn't say I know, I believe it's probably a challenge for our zoning office to keep tabs on an area that has so many balls in the air at once. You're trying to finish your new worship center. You're talking about building a school. We've got all these things coming together. And in the midst of that, we have a final development plan that may be changed. It's really hard to keep track of. That master plan would help everybody. So there again, I'm not opposed to your aggressive growth, but I think you need to help us out a little bit on this also. You mentioned that the academy is not a phased-in approach. When do you expect for your current construction and the school to be finished so that in a perfect world we could say, this is all done, we go on to the next plan?
Yeah, so originally we thought March, and then this past March.
Okay.
But with building supplies, mud, just all kinds of things that have slowed things up, it was better for people long story short, August 10th of this year is when we plan to open, assuming occupancy permit and everything like that. But yeah, the second Sunday in August, and we hope to be open. This, I believe, McKnight Group can speak better to this, but this we believe will break ground, assuming we're approved. Would break ground somewhere around October, right around Halloween would be the plan. Now, of course, everything the last 2 years has just been the last 2 years. We try to do a master plan here, and so we just threw the baseball, softball on the master plan. We don't plan to do it. We don't have the money for it right now, so that's the only thing that's on the master plan. But
one of the questions also related to the traffic issue. Do you have students who are bused? So you have buses coming and going?
Yeah, we got 2 buses.
Okay. How many students on those buses?
Craig Bartley, 7562. We probably have about 30 students that ride the 2 buses that Big Walnut provides.
30 for the 2 buses together, not 30 per bus?
Correct, together,
Okay.
total number, yep.
Okay. Those buses, I'm not sure which directions they go, but would you have any say-so in making sure that those buses would not go through via Florenza? And I know Big Walnut is responsible for the traffic pattern, but, you know, they're your students.
Yeah, absolutely. As we talk about a left turn and a right turn only out of that road, absolutely the buses would follow that traffic pattern.
So these folks would never see a bus from Genoa Christian on their streets.
Those are Big Walnut buses. Again, when they would leave our property, they would follow that signage that we have for them and the instructions we have for them. After they leave our property, there's no guarantees what a Big Walnut bus will do. I can't guarantee that.
Okay.
we could suggest it to Big Walnut for sure, but we don't own the buses or the bus
Right.
drivers, so we can't.
And that's why I asked the question,
Yeah.
because I know you don't.
Oh,
Yeah. So, you know, ideally, right, these folks wouldn't have these school buses going back and forth however many times a day. But since you are not responsible for them, you're piggybacking on Big Walnut. I'm sure you have limited say-so. Okay. Let's see. One of the things I think we need to remember, though, is that Via Florenza is a public street. And I empathize with all of you. I live on a street that now has 2 additional subdivisions to the north of it with stubs. And I completely understand your concern of trying to back out of my driveway some days. Yesterday I backed out and I had to quickly pull back in because somebody came around the curve at more than 25 miles an hour. It's a challenge. I am concerned about the comments I've heard about people, cars whooshing by them, you know, almost hitting them. You do have sidewalks, am I correct?
No. If you ever went into the development, that might be a help too. There's some sidewalks around the house, but on half of the development, there are no sidewalks. So you're walking or biking or whatever on the street.
The unfinished part?
Yeah.
Okay, that clarifies
So
it.
maybe it would be helpful for all of you to do the homework.
Well,
Not just them.
and,
Just suggest.
and I did go down your street. I actually hadn't been there for a while since you had a lot of new houses put in. It's a lovely neighborhood. I have to say, I'm not sure that anyone would use that as a cut-through, because as I started down this nice straight stretch from Worthington, I thought, yeah, this is possibility. And then I hit the first curve to the right, and the second curve to the left, and the next curve to the right. And then I got up to Lewis Center and had to wait for all the traffic, and I just thought, this is not helping me at all. So, you know, I'm not sure that a cut-through is what's going to happen, but that was my personal experience one time. So, let's see. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah, I too, I guess I was surprised to hear, the amount of cut-through and why that's happening right now. I mean, I don't know what the advantage would be to be coming off Worthington Road, cutting down via Florence to get to Lewis Center. Well, there's a stop sign at the end of via Florence and Lewis Center.
But it backs up on Worthington, it doesn't back up in Suffolk.
During the business, so it's during the busy times, is what you're saying, is there's more cut through.
It could be any time of day.
I went down there today at 4 o'clock and there wasn't one other car on the road, but,
It's hit and miss, I'm
yeah,
just saying.
yeah.
That's why people cut through, because I don't want to wait for the traffic. And if there's a roundabout, there's still gonna be traffic. Anybody that's been around, if you've never seen the back of a roundabout, it happens. So when you go to turn right, when you see traffic like that, half of these resistance, go straight. And if you go straight at 40 miles an hour, it's a hell of a lot faster. And that's what people do. And the police won't sit there and enforce the speed limit. And we can't enforce it, so we're stuck.
And there would probably be traffic, and again, I don't want to, because we want everyone on the record, so we really can't have it back and forth like this. But, and I don't know what kind of traffic is coming out of Sheffield to Lewis Center or even to Worthington for that matter on Reynoldsburg. So, you know, I'm not questioning that there's not cut-through traffic. We cut through traffic in our neighborhood. I'm sure all of us do. It's part of the unfortunate things that are going on in communities. All right, let me see here. I had some other questions. Okay. Someone, and I believe it was maybe Eric. No, yeah. Oh. Actually, I think it might have been one of the residents said there was 17% left-only traffic that made a left turn only. That was mentioned in the traffic study. Can you reference that? I looked through the traffic study and it was, first of all, difficult to read, but I'm not sure I saw 17% anywhere.
Yeah, I did on page 7. I believe we based where people are going and coming from. There's an existing school there, so that gives us the opportunity to look at existing traffic patterns, which sometimes vary depending on entering and exiting. So I think there is a 17% reference from the south, so AM entering from the south. Other times, the AM exiting is 24% to the south, so that would be the left out in the morning, and the left out in the evening we have 20%. So, you know, and the traffic that exits to the south then is just out of the area. It's not on Lewis Center or at Route 3, so that's one of the main advantages to having that outflow there.
Excuse me, I mentioned the 17%. It came from.
Oh, there you go. I just heard a voice, yeah, the masses.
Yeah, you can see my lips.
Yeah.
It came from a traffic study that I read. It said AM, PM, one was 16%, one was 18%. So like the 17 was the
Yeah.
average of the 16.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Mr. Gebhardt, if I could also,
Yes.
there was mention about if the traffic study during COVID was an accurate
Right.
representation. Our school has been open all year with the exception of an extra week of Christmas break.
Okay. Hold on, folks.
Our numbers for this year are an increase from the previous year, and so the numbers as far as GCA traffic would be accurate.
Okay.
Is this traffic study just from what you predict your students will do? So it wouldn't matter whether Olentangy or Big Walnut were in session full-time? This only had to do with your people?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
This traffic study, does it only take in consideration the people leaving your campus?
I believe, Todd, if I'm correct, that this is all the traffic that's on the street.
Correct. Yeah, we have
Yes.
both. We have
So
both
it wouldn't
this-
matter if Olentangy and Big Walnut were part-time while this occurred because you weren't counting those cars?
Well, we were counting everything that's there.
Okay.
I think it's a 20-year projection. So we get the growth rates from the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning
Right.
Commission. They've been telling us we do not need to adjust those because presumably if you have a lower count, you have a higher growth rate. So over
Okay.
the 20 years, it would reflect those variabilities. The other thing to mention is that the peak hour of the site in the PM when the school leaves is different from the returning home time period. So we were analyzing mid-afternoon when students would be leaving.
But the county engineer reviewed the traffic study and established the criteria on which the traffic study was done.
Correct, and we presented all the assumptions. That's why it's hard to read. But
Were these, so to kind of clarify, sometimes when you complete a traffic study, you don't actually count cars. It's all kind of, you plug in some data and they give you numbers. Did you actually count cars and physically complete the study, or is this just a guesstimate?
No, we counted both. We have full turning movement of existing
Okay.
traffic at both GCXs on Lewis Center Road and then Lewis Center and Worthington Road at intersection turning movement count.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let me, notes here. Those done. The school zone was the other issue. Joe, you had mentioned in your conversation with the county engineer's office that actually as a charter for private school, the request has to be made to the board of, the Department of Education by the school?
I think that's the.
Can you clarify that?
I think that's information they gave Trustee Vaughn. I didn't ask that particular question, but I think she did.
He didn't really give me a specific, this is what you do. He really didn't know how it worked. He just said it's somehow related to the Ohio Revised Code and their requirements.
Right.
And he said sometimes they have a better tab on schools that need it, but it's mostly public schools. They don't really monitor private schools.
But I mean, I know that there's a school down on Sunbury Road, almost to 161, and I mean, it's got it has a school zone, and it's a private church school.
He said sometimes you'll just get the signage. There won't be a reduced speed limit, it'll just be a
Just has
notification.
flashing lights.
Yeah, I don't.
And maybe it's because of Sunbury Road.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I don't know if it's because of traffic that is on that road or what, but I do think that obviously is something that, I mean, do you
Those
have
two
any-
are in Franklin County.
Right, they are in
So
Franklin County.
I don't know
Well,
differently down there or what.
As I recall too, the trustees of the police department asked for the flashing sign that's on Freeman Road by the Westerville schools, because that just had a sign at one point, and there were a number of cars that were going too fast. So at that point, there were the flashing lights put in. So I think, asking can't hurt.
Right.
We are not opposed to the requesting the school zone speed limit. I'll check into that. The language with ODE is a little bit vague at times. We're not a chartered school, we're a chartered non-public school. So again, I'll pursue that. We're in support of that if that's something that is desired.
All right.
Mr. Schaefer, you may know, I'm sorry.
No,
may
go
I-
ahead.
There has been discussion with parks in extending the trail from Mirasol southward. If that were to happen, do you know if that would have any impact on, I believe you made a comment about there being no pedestrian access. Would that change things at all?
I think the grant, as my understanding request, would go from Sheffield Park's trail system at Jay Cox and Worthington southward, so I don't think it would reach up as far as Mirasol.
Okay.
I mean, it would go, in essence, via the internal sidewalk network, but it wouldn't be up along Worthington from Jay Cox to VFW.
Thank you.
At least not the grant proposal we currently have in
Thank you.
not.
Joe, any other insights mean, in my listening to the zoning commission meetings, I mean, they obviously had concerns, and I mean, it was a 3 to 2 vote. Any insights into the discussion or your take on some of the concerns and how those concerns, could they be met?
I don't want to put words into their mouth, because the record really needs to speak for itself.
Right.
I believe the motion that was of denial that was passed, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I may not get it verbatim correctly, was cited inadequate design of the proposed driveway access onto Worthington Road. My sort of takeaway from it was, and this is just my takeaway, was they just felt like not quite enough work had been done to fully vet all of the options. Now, some of that work has been since done, talking about the school zone and the striping and the signage on the church property, and which some of that was verbally agreed to via the church, but as sort of noted, the commission very much wanted, at least some of them felt very strongly about seeing it on paper before voting on that. So I think the commission just was not sure that every stone had been unturned at that juncture of the process in regards to that design. And then when the church opted to request that the vote be held that evening instead of the continuance, then the commission had to vote on the materials as was presented to them. And I've already reported how that vote went.
There is another issue here with the revised code. And let me just quote this regarding traffic and controlling traffic as it relates to zoning in 5.6. It obviously talks about local governments may legitimately weigh traffic generation and added parking demand for proposed land uses in deciding whether or not to authorize them. Controlling traffic is not a primary purpose of zoning. That's in the revised code. If the proposed use is and should be a lawful one given the context of the surrounding area, then the prospect of additional traffic becomes a secondary consideration. Now, we've talked about the future here, and I think something we have to look at least I think we have to look at as trustees, and we've done this in the past, and it's at least 2 occasions has led to court cases where we wanted to actually follow the law, and unfortunately the law did not coincide with what local residents wanted, and ended up in court. And in one court case we did lose, and that was the Cardinal development, and the one is still in court. It's the people refer to as the pig farm. So, you know, I understand that we have to look at all the issues, but we also have to look at, from the township standpoint, that we can't get ourselves into a situation where we are going against the law and makes us vulnerable down in the future. So, you know, it's tough issue to deal with. So it's, at this time, any other comments?
I have one more comment, and it's interesting, in all the years that I've sat on the zoning board and now as a trustee, that tonight we've not talked about one thing about the actual building itself.
Right.
The zoning commission did an amazing job in making sure that all of that was taken care of. There's no divergences, so that part of this was really easy for us. The hard part is one thing, and that's the access road. The only comment I have.
And I have one more comment. I do agree that I think it's a beautiful building. I think you have a beautiful campus. I just think that this access road, again, I'll restate what I said earlier. It's a nice to have, it's not a must have. The fire marshal and the fire chief, they are not requiring that this be public access. It's only fire access. So I think for the safety of the surrounding area, I don't think that it's a need. And I proved my point with 2 other examples.
But I do believe there is a section of our zoning resolution that does say that this driveway is permissible.
It's
Whether it's needed or wanted, it can be done.
for fire access. I'll just,
It says
we
it
can
can
debate
be
all
done.
night. We can debate all night, so I'll just stop there.
It says it can be done.
Well,
All right.
and I think it can be done, and didn't I read in here that Worthington is the higher grade road, and there should be an access point to that per zoning, et cetera, so, but, yeah.
All right. Let's go ahead. I will move to reject the zoning commission's recommendation of denial and thus approve with modifications the subject final development plan amendment application submitted by Genoa Baptist Church to construct a school building on property located at 7562 Lewis Center Road, Westerville, Ohio 43082, currently zoned planned community facilities as further described, detailed, and illustrated in the plans and materials of zoning case number 2021-01, and furthermore incorporating exhibits A through L, as well as any commitments made by the applicant during this hearing, including, and I do have a couple conditions. One, I do want to state the residents have valid concerns relative to safety on both Via Florenza and Worthington Road. If approved, the following conditions would exist. One, staff will provide a, quote, traffic manager to help stop direct access to Via Florenz during high egress times from the church. Two, within 3 months, get a confirmation from Delaware County Engineer's Office that a physical barrier to prohibit cross traffic onto Via Florenz is not possible, and if it is possible, to incorporate that into an amended plan. And 3, investigate the designation of school zone on both Worthington roads and Lewis Center roads. This motion to approve the final development plan amendment, which is not subject to referendum, shall be valid for 3 years pursuant to the terms and conditions of section 2712.19 of the Genoa Township zoning resolution, and shall be administered in accordance with the applicable standards of Article 27 of said resolution, as may be amended. This motion is based on the following findings of fact and conclusions. 1, as per the Genoa Township zoning resolution, Genoa Church's application for a school building is a lawful and permitted use. 2, the applicant has met the requirements and recommendations of the Delaware County Engineer's Office relative to traffic management on Lewis Center and on Worthington Road. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Further discussion? We have the conditions down. Okay. Roll call.
No.
Trustee Goodman.
Yes.
Trustee Gephardt.
Yes. Motion carries. At this time, I will accept the motion to adjourn, or I will make a motion to adjourn this hearing at 9:48 p.m. Is there a second?
Second.
Made and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Trustee Vaughn.
Yes.
Trustee Goodman.
Yes.
Trustee Gephardt.
Yes. Motion carries. We stand adjourned.